They say the sky keeps secrets cold, ancient, and indifferent. But what if tomorrow those secrets came crashing down? What if a visitor from beyond our solar system, a fragment of something older than Earth itself, were no longer a distant wanderer, but a force aimed directly at us? Imagine waking to the news that 3I Atlas, the strange interstellar body racing through the cosmos, wasn't just passing by but locked onto a collision course with our fragile world. Imagine the hours that would follow, the silent countdown ticking above our heads, the weight of inevitability pressing down on billions of lives, and the knowledge that tomorrow may not resemble today at all. At first it might feel abstract, like a headline too surreal to absorb, but then the possibilities sharpen into terrifying clarity. Cities vanishing in an instant, skies torn open with fire, oceans rising in tsunamis that race faster than thought, entire continents swallowed by shock waves, leaving only fragments of memory behind. And yet, within this impending catastrophe, the human mind would search for meaning. Was this random chance, or a cosmic message written in stone and ice? Could we respond, or would we simply witness our place in history shift from enduring to extinguished? The clock ticks, and the universe does not pause. Tonight, we step into that fragile space between imagination and inevitability. We follow the thought experiment of a world transformed overnight, and we ask the question that matters most. The question isn't whether the impact would destroy us, it's whether in those final hours humanity would discover who it truly is. Chapter 1. The universe is full of wanderers. Some drift through the void without belonging to any star, their paths determined only by the echoes of forces long forgotten. 3I Atlas is one of them, a strange messenger from the deep night, catalogued by our telescopes, noted by our scientists, but never fully understood. It is not bound to the sun, nor to any orbit we can predict. It came from beyond, sliding silently through the gates of our solar system, carrying with it the mysteries of a past older than Earth itself. When it was first observed, it seemed harmless. Another comet, perhaps, though its features didn't quite align with what we knew. Its light curve flickered oddly, its path bent in ways we struggled to explain. Its structure was debated. Ice, rock, or something stranger. It was filed away as another curiosity in the expanding archive of the cosmos. But what if this curiosity, this seemingly unimportant traveler, chose to end its journey not in obscurity, but in collision? What if 3I Atlas, instead of vanishing back into the dark, found Earth in its way, and tomorrow became the day of impact? To imagine this is to confront the scale of our fragility. Earth is vast to us, but in the eyes of the cosmos it is a speck, a vulnerable island floating in an ocean of hazards. The paradox is unsettling. The very planet that feels so enduring under our feet can be undone by a single piece of drifting debris, no wider than a city. One object, one collision, one moment, and the illusion of permanence shatters. The numbers confirm it. Objects far smaller than 3I Atlas have scarred the surface of this world before. The crater in Mexico, the one linked to the end of the dinosaurs, was carved by an impactor barely 10 kilometers wide. Tunguska flattened forests across Siberia with something less than 100 meters in size. 3I Atlas is believed to be much larger, and unlike those relics of our own solar system, it arrives with interstellar speed, fast, merciless, unstoppable. In the face of this, scale itself becomes surreal. For us, a mountain is eternal. For the planet, mountains crumble like sand. For the universe, even planets are temporary, their lives measured in collisions and disintegrations. The visitor from afar reminds us that survival is not a given. Every breath we take depends on a cosmic balance that can be tipped by a body no one had heard of a decade ago. The unsettling truth is this: 3I Atlas does not need intent to threaten us. It does not need malice or meaning. It simply needs trajectory. And trajectory is indifferent. The laws of physics, older than stars, care nothing for the lives they affect. If its path crosses ours, then all our stories, our monuments, our triumphs and our tragedies could be reduced in a flash to dust and memory. And yet in this fragility, there is something oddly luminous. Imagine looking up at the sky, knowing that tomorrow it will fall. The stars above, usually silent, would suddenly carry a message. Your time was always borrowed. Cities would not seem like fortresses of permanence anymore, but delicate sculptures made of sand, precious because they could vanish. The visitor from afar would become a mirror, forcing humanity to see itself as it truly is, brief, brilliant, and endlessly vulnerable. There is a paradox hidden here. The closer the shadow of annihilation looms, the more vivid life becomes. A single day left might feel more alive than 100 ordinary years. The laugh of a child, the warmth of a friend's hand, the quiet of a dawn would all grow sharper under the knowledge that tomorrow they may not return. The comet's threat, while destructive, also carries the strange gift of clarity, to remind us that every moment matters and none are guaranteed. But before the flame, there is silence. Before the collision, there is recognition. Humanity would first look at 3i Atlas, not as an enemy, but as a puzzle. What is this object? How large is it really? Why did it come here? Could we have seen it earlier? The mind tries to explain away what the heart already fears, that we stand in the path of something unstoppable. Scientists would measure and debate, the public would watch in awe and terror, and all the while the silent traveler would continue its descent. It is easy to dismiss this thought experiment as fantasy, yet the history of our planet is written in craters. The moon above us, scarred and pitted, testifies to a cosmos that throws stones without warning. Earth, with its weather and oceans, hides many of its wounds, but they are there, circular scars across deserts, seas and forests, each one a reminder that we have been struck before and will be struck again. What makes 3i Atlas different is not the possibility of impact, but the immediacy, not someday, not maybe, tomorrow. And here, the theme confirms itself. This is not merely about comets or astronomy. It is about the fragility of all we know. Civilization builds cathedrals, satellites, skyscrapers and empires, believing them to be strong, but all the strength of humanity is as fragile as glass when placed before the cold mechanics of the cosmos. The visitor from afar does not negotiate, does not pause, does not hesitate. Its message is written in silence, its language is gravity and speed, and tomorrow it speaks to us directly. Yet within this impending crisis lies the seed of awe, for to face the destruction of all we know is also to touch the immensity of the universe. To imagine 3i Atlas descending upon us is to realize that we live within a story far larger than ourselves, one written across billions of years and countless stars. We are not the first world to face such an event, and we will not be the last. Impact is a language of creation and destruction, reshaping planets, forging moons, and even sparking the beginnings of life itself. The comet that ends us could be cousin to the comet that once delivered the first waters to Earth. Thus the paradox deepens. What threatens to extinguish us is also kin to what gave us breath. The same wandering ice that annihilates might also seed. In that recognition, terror and wonder collapse into one. And so, the story begins with a visitor. Silent, ancient, relentless. Tomorrow it may end its journey upon us. Tomorrow the fragile sphere we call home may tremble under its weight. And tomorrow, the world will learn what it means when the cosmos itself comes knocking. The question is no longer whether 3i Atlas exists. The question is no longer whether impacts happen. The only question is what it means for us, here and now. If tomorrow the sky falls, Chapter 2. What would the world look like if tomorrow's sunrise carried the shadow of finality? What if the day began as any other alarm clocks buzzing, traffic humming, markets opening, yet within hours, an announcement split reality into before and after? The paradox of catastrophe is this. It does not arrive when we expect it. It breaks into the ordinary, threading itself into the fabric of normal life, until suddenly everything is changed. The collision of 3i Atlas would not begin with fire or shockwaves. It would begin with words spoken first in hushed tones by scientists, then amplified into a roar that reached every corner of the planet. Imagine it. Early morning in observatories across the globe, astronomers scanning the sky as they always do. Most nights are filled with monotony. Numbers, coordinates, the endless plotting of faint dots against a black canvas. Yet within those dots lies danger. A streak of light appears in images, confirmed across multiple telescopes, and its path is plotted with increasing precision. At first the data seems improbable, a 1 in a billion trajectory, but the more it is checked, the more certainty hardens. The visitor from afar is not passing by, it is aimed at Earth. Impact, less than 24 hours. What would those first scientists feel? Relief that their instruments were not wrong? Dread that their discovery would echo through history as the last warning humanity would ever receive? Perhaps disbelief most of all that something so vast, so unalterable, could reduce the power of nations to mere spectators? But science does not pause for emotion. The announcement must be made. Phone calls ripple between research centers. Alerts are drafted, hesitantly at first, then marked urgent. The International Astronomical Union, national space agencies, defense ministries, all find themselves on the same thread of communication. Each second counts, and yet each second stretches unbearably, because the message they are about to deliver will upend civilization's calm in an instant. And then, the words leave private networks and enter the public domain. News outlets cut into programming, radios hum with the bulletin, phones buzz with alerts, social media ignites with headlines too surreal to believe. Interstellar Object 3, Atlas confirmed on collision course with Earth. Impact expected within 24 hours. How does a world receive such a message? With panic, yes, but also with silence. A stunned silence as though billions of minds simultaneously tried to deny what they heard. Tomorrow is supposed to be guaranteed. Tomorrow is supposed to bring commutes, lunches, appointments, the ordinariness of routine. To have tomorrow stolen by a stone from the stars feels unreal, like a dream one cannot wake from. Yet denial cannot last long. Images circulate of the incoming body, a faint point of light, magnified until it appears almost alive. Simulations play across screens, showing a red line intersecting with the fragile blue of Earth. The countdown is displayed like a clock of doom, hours melting into minutes, each second pulling humanity closer to inevitability. And still, questions erupt. Where will it hit? What part of the world will be its target? Will there be survivors? Governments scramble to answer, but the truth is brutal. The exact location is uncertain. The only certainty is devastation. The object's speed, its mass, and its angle of approach make survival improbable for any region struck directly. And the global consequences, tsunamis, firestorms, atmospheric collapse, will not stop at borders. Consider the paradox here. Never before has humanity been so united, and never before has that unity been so helpless. Rival nations who once guarded secrets now share data openly, for secrecy has lost meaning. What use is hoarding knowledge when the sky itself prepares to strike? Leaders speak, their voices quivering despite rehearsed calm, assuring citizens that everything possible will be done. But what is possible when physics itself has already spoken? Some will cling to hope. Perhaps the scientists are wrong. Perhaps the comet will burn up in the atmosphere. Perhaps it will miss by a margin too small to detect. Others will interpret the news as myth reborn, proof of prophecy fulfilled. For some, it will be divine punishment. For others, cosmic randomness. But beneath every story is the same truth. Tomorrow is no longer promised. What does a world do when time itself becomes scarce? Within hours, cities transform. Stock markets collapse, their numbers plunging into irrelevance as wealth itself loses meaning. Highways clog with cars, people fleeing nowhere in particular, as though distance itself could shield them from falling sky. Supermarkets are stripped bare, not from reason but from desperation as instinct overrides rational thought. In other places, silence rules. Families gather in living rooms, candles lit, prayers whispered, not in panic but in acceptance. And still, communication flows. Governments release maps of potential impact zones, though these are speculative at best. Television shows round-the-clock coverage, anchors speaking with trembling voices as experts describe worst-case scenarios. Online, billions share messages of farewell, final videos, last declarations of love. Humanity, so often fractured, suddenly becomes a chorus of voices facing the same horizon. But, alongside unity, chaos spreads. Law enforcement buckles under the strain of riots and looting. Some seek escape not in hope but in denial. Crowds fill bars, nightclubs and stadiums, determined to celebrate until the last second. Others seek solitude, vanishing into mountains, forests or oceans, hoping that the earth itself might shield them. And above it all, 3i Atlas continues its descent, silent and indifferent. Humanity's cries do not alter its course. It falls as it has fallen for eons, across distances unfathomable, toward a world that only now realizes its fragility. The most haunting part of the announcement is not the panic it sparks, but the stillness it creates. For in the hours after the news, time itself feels altered. Every moment becomes weighted, significant. Each second lost is irreplaceable. The human race, for the first time in its long history, confronts not just the idea of death, but the certainty of extinction within a measurable span. What is the value of a single hour when the universe has decreed the end of all hours? Some turn to memory, racing to capture photographs, recordings, journals, as though posterity could survive when humanity does not. Some turn to legacy, sending desperate transmissions into space, hoping another civilization might find them one day and know we existed. Others turn inward, searching for peace within the storm, finding solace in faith, philosophy, or the simple presence of loved ones. The announcement, though scientific in nature, becomes something far greater. It is the dividing line of history. Everything before it becomes irrelevant. Everything after it becomes countdown. And as the hours drain away, a question forms, unspoken yet shared by all. If tomorrow the Earth falls silent, what will humanity choose to say in its final day? The paradox is profound. The announcement of doom becomes an invitation to live not in decades or years, but in moments, fragile, fleeting, irreplaceable. In the shadow of collision, humanity discovers what it always ignored, that life was never guaranteed, and that every tomorrow was always uncertain. And so the world listens, breathless, as the news reverberates through every city, every village, every heart. The visitor from afar is coming, and it does not slow. Tomorrow fire will descend. Tomorrow oceans will rise. Tomorrow the sky will fall. But before impact, there is time. Brief, precious, haunting time. And in that time, humanity must decide not how it will survive, but how it will face the inevitable. The announcement has been made. The question now moves forward. What does the world look like in those last hours before the sky itself burns? Chapter 3. What destroys a world? Is it fire, ice, or silence from the sky? Or is it something simpler, an object no larger than a mountain, carrying within it the inevitability of extinction? 3I Atlas is not merely a comet, nor merely an asteroid. It is something stranger, a fragment of another system, older than Earth itself. Its very name tells a story. 3I marks it as the third interstellar object ever identified, after Oumuamua and Borisov. Atlas ties it to the survey that first noticed its flicker against the dark. But names cannot capture what it truly is, a wanderer that has crossed the gulfs between stars, a piece of material unbound by any sun, now falling toward ours. The paradox is clear. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Civilizations have risen and fallen, continents shifted, oceans spread and withdrawn, yet in all that time, only now do we face the sudden arrival of something alien, something that does not belong to our solar system yet, now dictates our fate. A visitor we did not invite, bearing no malice yet carrying destruction beyond comprehension. What is this object really made of? Astronomers debate. Some insist 3I Atlas is a comet, an icy relic formed in the outer reaches of another system, its surface shedding trails of dust and vapor as it nears a star. If so, then its impact with Earth would not simply be a collision of rock but of volatile chemicals igniting with unimaginable energy. A frozen giant that has wandered for eons could, in a single second, release more force than all the nuclear weapons humanity has ever built combined. Others suggest it is rocky, like an asteroid, denser, darker, less reflective. If this is true, then its destructive power could be even greater, for a dense body striking at interstellar velocity carries energy no planet can endure. Rock is merciless, and interstellar rock even more so. The moment of impact would unleash earthquakes that rattle every plate on Earth, tsunamis that consume coasts, and skies that burn as if set aflame by the sun itself. Still others whisper that it could be something stranger still. Oumuamua baffled scientists with its unusual shape and non-gravitational acceleration. Borisov, its successor, carried a chemical signature unlike any comet from our own system. What if 3I Atlas holds within it compounds unknown to Earth, elements forged in the hearts of alien stars, substances that react with our atmosphere in ways we cannot predict? The threat is not merely its speed or size, but its mystery. We do not fully know what is coming, and ignorance amplifies fear. How fast does the universe strike when it chooses to strike? Speed is merciless. Comets within our solar system strike at tens of kilometers per second, but interstellar bodies move faster still, unbound by our sun's gravity, carrying the momentum of journeys across light years. If 3I Atlas struck Earth, the energy released would dwarf the explosions that ended the age of dinosaurs. We measure such force not in tons of TNT, but in magnitudes so vast they become abstractions, millions of Hiroshimas condensed into a single instant. This is the nature of the threat. Inevitability magnified by velocity. The sheer speed of the object means there is no way to deflect it. Rockets would never reach it in time. Gravity itself bends before its momentum. It is a bullet fired by the cosmos, and Earth is its target. But what of size? Does the scale of the object matter when destruction is certain? It matters greatly. If 3I Atlas were small, the atmosphere might shield us, breaking it apart before it reached the surface. Even then, devastation would follow. A Tunguska-like blast leveling regions the size of nations. But if it is large, and many estimates suggest it could span kilometers, then no shield is possible. The atmosphere would compress in front of it, heating to thousands of degrees, igniting the very air before the body even touched the ground. Upon impact, shock waves would ripple through the crust, vaporizing oceans, casting entire continents into flame. The Earth itself would react as a living body reacts to trauma. Convulsions, ruptures, collapses. Volcanoes might awaken, the ground might split, and the skies would darken with ash and smoke. In days, the world could become unrecognizable. In weeks, it could become uninhabitable. What does it mean to face an enemy that is not alive? The terror of Three-Eye Atlas lies not in intention, but in indifference. A storm may be feared, but at least it passes. A war may be fought, but at least it has a cause. This threat carries neither malice nor mercy. It simply is. The laws of gravity do not negotiate. The rock does not pause to listen. It falls, and in falling, it rewrites the story of Earth. There is another paradox here. The same cosmic collisions that threaten us have also shaped us. The Moon, our eternal companion, was born from a catastrophic impact billions of years ago. The comets that threaten to drown our cities also once delivered the waters that fill our oceans. Even the organic molecules essential for life may have ridden on bodies like Three-Eye Atlas, crashing into Earth in an age when no eye could witness it. What destroys is also what creates. The hand of doom is the same hand that carved the possibility of life. And yet, the scale of this event is beyond creation. It is not the gentle seeding of molecules but the annihilation of civilizations. Cities built over centuries, monuments carved by human ambition, archives of knowledge accumulated over millennia, all would vanish in hours. History itself would burn, and memory would dissolve. Humanity's story, written across countless languages and cultures, could end with nothing but a scar in the Earth's crust to mark it. Could anything survive such a strike? Perhaps. Life on Earth has endured impacts before. Microbes buried deep underground, extremophiles clinging to vents beneath the ocean, seeds carried on the winds. Life is stubborn. Even if Three-Eye Atlas extinguished humanity, life itself might adapt, persist, and evolve anew. From the ashes of extinction, other beings might rise as we once rose after the fall of the dinosaurs. But would that count as survival, or as replacement? If humanity perishes, does Earth's endurance comfort us or deepen the tragedy? This, then, is the nature of the threat. Not only destruction, but transformation. Earth would not cease to exist. It would change violently, permanently. The landscapes we know would be erased. The climate would shift. The balance of ecosystems would collapse. And in the silence after fire, the planet would enter a new chapter, one without us. But what of the heart? What does it mean for humanity to face such knowledge? The science is vast, but the human reaction is intimate. To know the nature of Three-Eye Atlas is to feel the weight of fragility in every breath. The object itself is distant, cold, unfeeling, yet the fear it generates lives in human hearts, in the way parents hold their children tighter, in the way strangers clasp hands, in the way final words are whispered across phone lines. The threat is cosmic, but the response is human. This is why the announcement of Three-Eye Atlas's nature is so devastating. It tells us not only that we are in danger, but that we are helpless. We can predict, we can calculate, we can describe, but we cannot prevent. The visitor from afar strips us of control, reminding us that in the hierarchy of the universe, humanity does not command but obeys. And so, the nature of the threat becomes not only physical, but existential. It forces us to ask what it means to live, knowing that living may soon end. It forces us to measure the value of each hour, each choice, each memory. It forces us to face a truth we often deny, that survival was never permanent, and that everything we cherish rests on fragile foundations. The object approaches. Its composition, its speed, its size, all point to destruction. Yet the true weight of Three-Eye Atlas is not in its matter, but in its meaning. It is not only a body from another star, it is a reminder of the cosmos we inhabit, vast, indifferent, and unpredictable. It is a mirror held to humanity, reflecting our fragility, our unity, our fear, and our fleeting brilliance. And as the world comes to understand the nature of what is falling toward it, a new question begins to emerge, one that carries us into the next chapter. If the object cannot be stopped and its nature is certain, then how do we prepare for the mathematics of doom? Chapter 4. What if the end of the world could be written in numbers? Not in fire, not in screams, not in falling skies, but in quiet equations scrawled across a chalkboard, each symbol marking the countdown of existence. When astronomers confront a threat like Three-Eye Atlas, they do not begin with panic or poetry. They begin with trigonometry, with vectors, with the steady tick of orbital mechanics. They measure the angle of approach, the velocity relative to Earth, the mass inferred from brightness. They take the cold light of a distant visitor and translate it into calculations of destruction. And hidden within those equations lies a chilling truth. Mathematics does not lie, even when it whispers doom. Consider the velocity first. 3i Atlas, racing in from the dark, travels not at the gentle drift of a falling leaf, but at tens of kilometers every second, so swift that the very air before it would ignite into plasma upon approach. At that speed, the difference between missing Earth by 1,000,000 kilometers and striking it dead center is no more than a sliver of calculation, a decimal point out of place, a rounding error stretched across space. Numbers become cliffs upon which survival balances. And then comes mass. The brightness suggests size, but brightness deceives. Is the body icy, reflective, and light, or dark, rocky, and many times heavier than it appears? An icy shard the size of a mountain would explode in the atmosphere, with energy surpassing all the world's nuclear stockpiles. A rocky core of the same size would carve a wound into Earth that would bleed for centuries. The difference between the two is hidden, not in human eyes, but in calculations wrung from faint light curves and elusive fragments of data. What is the power of such a collision? The answer is measured in joules, the sterile units of energy. But numbers can be translated. A 1-kilometer asteroid delivers more energy than every bomb ever built. A 10-kilometer object equals the fire that ended the reign of dinosaurs. Now imagine 3i Atlas, perhaps 20 kilometers wide, perhaps more, slamming into the fragile crust of Earth. The calculation writes itself. Not billions, not trillions, but quintillions of joules released in an instant. A detonation larger than imagination. A release of power on a scale that mocks the very word apocalypse. Mathematics has no emotion, yet within it lives dread. Every decimal, every line of computation whispers inevitability. Trajectory determines timing. Mass determines magnitude. Angle determines aftermath. Whether the oceans will roar into mile-high tsunamis, or whether mountains will collapse into firestorms, or whether a winter of ash will choke the skies for decades. All of it is written in the language of mathematics, as if the universe itself speaks through symbols of destruction. But why is it that we trust the numbers more than we trust our senses? Because the human eye cannot comprehend the vastness of scale. We are made to measure days in footsteps, lives in years. Yet mathematics stretches across epochs, across planets, across infinities. It sees the dance of gravity millions of kilometers away and brings it down into lines on a page. It can tell us with heartless precision that tomorrow may not dawn as expected. Still, there is an irony at play. For while mathematics may reveal doom, it also offers hope. What if the decimal places are kinder than they appear? What if the angle is not one of death, but of passage? What if the trajectory bends just enough? The silent tug of Jupiter altering fate by the smallest of margins. A single fraction, invisible to human sight, can mean the difference between extinction and survival. Thus the mathematics of doom becomes the mathematics of destiny. And yet, numbers do not negotiate. They do not pity. They do not forgive mistakes. In the sterile silence of calculation there is no comfort. Only the truth, as merciless as it is exact. The comet is either coming, or it is not. Or the collision is either certain, or it is not. No prayers or bargains can change the decimal place, once the equation is set. But what happens when those equations, scribbled late into the night by weary astronomers, cross the threshold into the world of politics, media, and public consciousness? When mathematics escapes the blackboard and enters the human heart. What weight does it carry then? What weight does it carry then? For numbers may be unfeeling, but people are not. And when the mathematics of doom becomes the mathematics of fear, a new story begins. One not written in equations, but in the reactions of those who learn them. And so we must ask, when the cold numbers reach the ears of the many, what happens next? Chapter 5. The first wave of destruction does not come from the sky. It comes from words. Before any comet tail scorches the atmosphere, before any impact shakes the ground, The storm of headlines, broadcasts and whispers erupts across the world with a ferocity that rivals the object itself. What happens when mathematics leaves the quiet halls of observatories and steps into the chaos of human storytelling? It transforms. Numbers, once precise and unemotional, are translated into fear, into sensation, into spectacle. A trajectory angle becomes inevitable doom. A statistical probability becomes certainty. A faint possibility of survival is reduced to a headline of panic. The media storm does not measure carefully. It amplifies, it dramatizes, it consumes. And yet, is this not inevitable? Human beings are not built for silence in the face of threat. The comet's approach, once hidden in the distant dark, now belongs to every screen, every feed, every glowing rectangle. News anchors speak in somber tones, yet beneath their gravity lies a spark of excitement, the knowledge that fear is fuel, and that nothing grips attention more than the suggestion of imminent extinction. What if tomorrow truly is the last sunrise? The question becomes a refrain, echoed across radio waves, repeated in headlines, whispered in crowded cafes. Images of fireballs streak across television screens. Artists' impressions of apocalyptic skies circulate online. The comet itself is invisible to most eyes, but its image becomes unavoidable, an icon of annihilation branded into collective thought. But what is more dangerous? The comet in the sky, or the chaos it stirs in the human heart? For the storm of words spreads faster than any object in space. It does not wait for orbital confirmation or official statements. It multiplies in memes, in rumors, in grainy footage of the night sky where every streak of light becomes evidence. It divides societies into believers and deniers, those who demand action and those who mock the panic as hysteria. Even before impact, the fractures of humanity begin to widen. Consider the paradox. The very tools designed to keep us informed become engines of fear. Social media, relentless in its immediacy, magnifies every theory, every speculation, every falsehood. Some voices claim salvation, others preach resignation, while many simply exploit the fear for attention. Within hours, the world is not united against the comet, but divided by the narratives it inspires. And yet, there is another side to this storm. For all its distortion and drama, the media also ensures awareness. Without it, the comet's approach might remain a quiet matter of academic papers, debated in obscurity until the very last moment. Instead, billions of eyes turn upward. Billions of hearts beat faster. For the first time in history, nearly all of humanity shares a single unifying concern. The storm, chaotic though it may be, becomes the very thing that binds the species together. But binding does not always mean peace. It can mean shared fear, shared anger, shared unrest. Markets crash under the weight of uncertainty. Flights are cancelled, supply chains falter, governments scramble to reassure citizens. Panic buying sweeps through supermarkets as if tins of food could shield against extinction. The ripple effects of information move faster than any plan for survival can be enacted. What role do leaders play in this tempest? Their voices, broadcast in emergency addresses, attempt to calm, to soothe, to inspire unity. But even their words cannot escape the storm. To some their reassurances sound hollow, to others conspiratorial. For once trust begins to fracture, every message becomes suspect, every attempt at control breeds suspicion, and in that suspicion grows a deeper fear, not just of the comet, but of each other. Still, amid the noise, there are voices of reason. Astrophysicists appear on late-night programs explaining probabilities, describing the comet not as a monster but as a visitor. Their calm words are like candles in a gale, small flames flickering against a hurricane of panic. Some listen, some are soothed, but most are carried away by the louder winds of sensationalism. The media storm does not hunger for nuance, it feeds on extremes. What does it mean then to live under such a deluge? It means waking each morning to a world already drenched in fear. It means every conversation carries the weight of the sky. It means children overhear whispers they do not understand, and carry them as shadows in their sleep. The storm is invisible, intangible, yet it alters the fabric of daily life more than the comet itself. But storms by their nature pass, and when this one subsides, what remains is not calm, but a question. What will humanity do with this knowledge? For awareness is only the first step, and fear alone does not save. The media has awakened billions to the threat, but awakening is not the same as action. The comet approaches, regardless of headlines. And now the question shifts. Beyond the words and the panic, what can actually be done? Chapter 6. Power, when tested by cosmic scale, reveals its limits. For centuries, governments have been the ultimate human arbiters of fate, deciding wars, shaping economies, crafting the laws that bind society. Yet against the silent descent of a celestial body, their power seems fragile, almost ceremonial, and still, the world turns its eyes to them, demanding answers, demanding leadership, demanding salvation from the unmovable sky. What does a government do when faced with extinction? First it speaks. The leaders of nations emerge onto podiums, their faces stern, their words carefully chosen. Some preach calm, assuring their people that contingency plans exist, that scientists are working, that hope is not yet lost. Others adopt defiance, vowing that humanity will fight the comet as if it were an invading army. And some, quieter and more fragile, falter in their tone, their words betraying the weight of despair. Every statement is analyzed, replayed, dissected, not for what is said but for what trembles beneath the surface. But words are only the beginning. Behind closed doors, the machinery of state lurches into motion. Cabinets meet in emergency sessions. Generals present classified scenarios. Intelligence agencies intercept whispers of panic spreading through the public. From Washington to Beijing, from Moscow to Brussels, the same question is raised in urgent halls: what can be done, and how long remains to do it? Yet the truth is merciless. Human institutions, vast and powerful as they may seem, were not designed for threats measured in kilometers of rock and ice. Budgets are built for elections, armies for borders, policies for decades, not for a singular moment when the sky itself turns hostile. And so governments find themselves improvising before the most unforgiving of clocks. Some turn to weaponry, considering whether missiles, nuclear warheads or experimental technologies could shatter the approaching body. Advisors warn of risks. What if the comet fractures into smaller, still deadly shards? What if the strike misses, leaving humanity not with salvation, but with only hours lost from an already short timeline? The debates rage, the diagrams unfurl, and yet every proposal collides with the same obstacle. Time is measured in days, not years. Others think of evacuation. But evacuation to where? The Earth is a single cradle, and there is no second home waiting in the void. At best, people can be moved from coasts to higher ground, from cities to bunkers, from the vulnerable into the illusion of safety. It is triage on a planetary scale, where billions cannot be protected, and the decisions of who is spared and who is left behind fall upon the trembling hands of officials. Still others focus on control. They fear not only the comet, but the collapse of order in its shadow. Curfews are discussed, emergency laws drafted, militaries prepared not for war against the heavens, but against their own restless populations. For what good is governance if panic consumes the streets before the comet even arrives? To rule in such a moment is not to plan for victory, but to delay chaos for as long as possible. And yet, amidst the desperation, there are glimmers of something extraordinary. For in rare moments rivalries dissolve. The boundaries that once separated nation from nation blur, as leaders recognize that no border wall, no passport, no military alliance can shield against the cosmos. Suddenly, the old enemies of geopolitics find themselves seated at the same tables, signing agreements not of trade or territory, but of survival. Information is shared across languages and ideologies. Data once jealously guarded is released openly, not for pride, but for necessity. It is as if the comet has forced humanity, for perhaps the first time, to see itself as a single fragile species. But even this unity carries tension, for cooperation demands trust, and trust is scarce in the shadow of doom. Whispers emerge of secret programs, of nations hiding technologies or shelters for their elites. The media speculates on underground cities, on spacecraft prepared for escape, on betrayals that may never come to light. Paranoia festers, and the fragile unity risks splintering under suspicion. And still the clock ticks. The comet approaches, unbothered by human quarrels. Governments may legislate, may prepare, may argue, but the heavens do not pause to accommodate. And so every measure taken is haunted by the question, is it enough? Or are these the last gestures of power before the great silence swallows all? Yet for all the planning, the speeches, the secret councils, there is one truth governments cannot escape. They are being watched. Billions of citizens, gripped by fear and hope, look to their leaders as if they hold the keys of fate. And this expectation may be more dangerous than the comet itself. For when the illusion of control collapses, what replaces it? Perhaps that is the true question, the one governments fear most of all. If the comet cannot be stopped, can society itself survive the knowledge of its coming? Chapter 7. What happens when the guardians of knowledge cannot agree? when the very minds entrusted with truth fracture into competing visions of the future. For in the shadow of Three-Eye Atlas, the unity of science begins to splinter, and in that splintering lies both hope and despair. Science is often imagined as a single voice, calm, steady, unshaken by fear. But behind the appearance of consensus lies a chorus of disagreements, of rival theories and competing interpretations, and when the stakes are measured in the survival of humanity, those disagreements grow sharper, their consequences heavier. The divide begins with the nature of the comet itself. Some argue it is a loose conglomeration of ice and dust, a fragile wanderer that would disintegrate long before reaching the lower atmosphere. To them, the threat is immense but not absolute. The planet might burn, but life could endure. Others counter with darker visions, insisting that beneath the shimmering coma lies a dense, stony core, a bullet of rock traveling too fast for resistance. To them, the collision means not devastation but extinction. Which vision is true? The data, drawn from faint telescopic traces, is maddeningly incomplete. Measurements of brightness suggest one answer. Spectral readings suggest another. Every calculation depends on assumptions, and assumptions shift like sand underfoot. The comet remains a riddle written in the language of light, and no one can yet read it with certainty. But the divide runs deeper than composition. It extends to solutions. Some scientists insist the only chance lies in deflection, to strike the body with nuclear warheads and push it from its path. They argue that even a tiny alteration, a fraction of a degree, could mean the difference between annihilation and survival. Others warn this plan is reckless, that a failed strike would merely fracture the comet into many deadly fragments, turning one wound into 1,000. To them, intervention is folly, and preparation for impact is the only rational course. Then there are those who dream bigger. They speak of harnessing lasers, of building vast solar sails in orbit, of deploying gravitational tractors to tug the comet gently aside. Their visions are bold, brilliant, but require decades of preparation, time humanity does not possess, and so their ideas are dismissed, filed under the cruel category of too late. Yet still more radical voices emerge. Some claim the comet is not natural at all, that its trajectory is too precise, its appearance too coincidental. They whisper of artificial origins, of alien engineering, of intentions far beyond human understanding. To them, the comet is not a threat to be deflected, but a message to be interpreted. Most dismiss these claims as fringe speculation, but in moments of desperation, even the improbable begins to find an audience. What does it mean when scientists cannot agree? It means that leaders face not one clear directive, but a storm of competing truths. It means the public, already drowning in fear, hears not certainty but discord. And in that discord, trust erodes. For if the experts cannot align their visions, how can ordinary people believe any of them? But disagreement is not always weakness. In the clash of perspectives lies the essence of discovery. The debates, though heated, push deeper into the riddle of the comet. Every argument sharpens understanding. Every doubt forces refinement. Science is not a monolith, but a crucible. And in that crucible ideas are tested, burned and transformed. Perhaps within the fire of disagreement lies the very spark that could reveal salvation. Yet time does not wait for consensus. The comet draws nearer. Each night, its glow grows brighter, its presence undeniable even to the naked eye. And as its form becomes clearer in the sky, the divisions among scientists become clearer on the ground. Conferences devolve into arguments. Research papers are rushed into publication. Warnings, predictions and rebuttals cascade into the public sphere with dizzying speed. And the people watch, bewildered by the discord. They do not see the nuance of data or the elegance of equations. They see only the uncertainty, the cracks in the voice of reason. And in those cracks, fear grows deeper. What then is the role of science in this hour? Is it to provide certainty, even if that certainty is false? Or is it to remain honest about uncertainty, even if honesty breeds panic? This is the question that tears at the hearts of scientists themselves, forcing them to confront not just the comet, but the burden of their own responsibility. Perhaps the greatest divide is not about the comet at all, but about truth itself. Should truth be told, raw and unvarnished, even if it shatters hope? Or should it be tempered, softened into something the human spirit can bear? In laboratories and observatories, this debate rages in silence, a moral chasm as vast as space itself. And as the days slip away, one truth becomes inescapable. Whether divided or united, whether right or wrong, the scientists cannot alter the approach of the comet. Their role is to illuminate, to guide, to offer clarity in darkness. But clarity itself is fractured, and in that fracture lies the uneasy silence of a world waiting for what comes next. If the guardians of knowledge cannot agree, then where does humanity turn for certainty? Perhaps the answer lies not in laboratories, but in the hearts of ordinary people, facing the end together. Chapter 8. What happens to a world when it suddenly realizes tomorrow may not come? Not next year, not in some abstract future, but tomorrow. The announcement of 3I Atlas's impending collision with Earth does not fall on a quiet world. It falls into a hive of noise already brimming with fear, hope, distraction and denial. And in that instant, all the scattered threads of human attention, news feeds, social networks, whispered rumors, midnight conversations, converge into one overwhelming current of obsession. Some react with disbelief, scoffing at what they call alarmist predictions. They dismiss the warnings as yet another manipulation, another spectacle, in an age addicted to spectacle. For them, tomorrow will simply be tomorrow, and the comet is nothing more than another headline meant to stir panic. But even their defiance is a form of reaction, a denial that masks the trembling of the unknown. Others react with urgency. They rush to stores, emptying shelves of food, water, batteries and fuel. Highways clog with vehicles fleeing toward imagined safe havens. Even though none exist, cities pulse with sudden migrations of people trying to find family, trying to cling to one another as if proximity itself could soften the blow of annihilation. And yet, for others, the reaction is stillness. They sit quietly in their homes, not knowing whether to scream, pray, or laugh. The enormity of the news crushes all action. They scroll endlessly through their phones, watching the reactions of strangers, refreshing pages for updates, waiting for clarity that never comes. But is humanity ever united in its response? No. For every frantic flight from cities, there are gatherings in public squares, crowds holding candles, lifting their voices in prayer or in song. For every act of violence born of fear, there is an act of generosity born of grace. Neighbors share food, strangers embrace, old grudges dissolve overnight. The fragility of life laid bare reminds people of what truly matters, even in the shadow of extinction. What is more haunting than fear? It is indifference. Some continue their routines as if nothing has changed. Coffee shops open their doors. Trains run on schedule. Children laugh in playgrounds, too young to understand. The machinery of daily life resists interruption, as though habit itself might shield humanity from the comet's fire. Yet beneath the surface, emotions ripple uncontrollably. The internet becomes a storm of panic and prophecy. Some insist that scientists are wrong, that the comet will miss. Others declare it divine punishment, a reckoning long overdue. Conspiracy theories multiply like wildfire, claims of secret shelters for the elite, whispers of governments plotting to survive while the masses perish. Amid the din, truth and falsehood blur until no one can be certain which voice to trust. And what of faith? In cathedrals, mosques and temples, people gather in numbers unseen for decades. Hymns echo beneath vaulted ceilings. Prayers rise into the night air. For some, the end is not terror, but transcendence, a return to the eternal. Others, bitter and lost, curse the heavens for their silence. Never before has the human spirit been so naked, exposed to the weight of both hope and despair. But the most paradoxical reaction of all is joy. Parties erupt in some corners of the globe. People dance, drink, and laugh under the fading stars. If tomorrow brings fire, then tonight must be lived fully, without restraint. In their revelry is a desperate defiance, the insistence that even in the face of cosmic destruction, humanity will not bow quietly. And yet the question lingers. Are these reactions preparation or distraction? Is humanity confronting the truth or fleeing from it in the only ways it knows how? Every tear shed, every laugh shared, every store emptied, every street filled with song, all of it is a mirror reflecting humanity back to itself. The comet is no longer a distant object of astronomy. It is a revelation, stripping away illusion and forcing the species to gaze into its own soul. As the hours slip by, one thought begins to haunt every corner of the earth. What happens when fear turns into desperation? When the countdown grows shorter? When the comet burns visibly in the sky? How will humanity behave then? Chapter 9. Dawn arrives as it always does, indifferent to human expectation, indifferent to the silent judgment of the cosmos. Yet today the sunrise carries a weight never before known. The light spills over mountains and cities alike, painting the world in gold and pink, while humanity stands frozen beneath it, caught between awe and terror. For in every shadow and every glow the approaching comet makes itself felt, an invisible pulse that quickens the rhythm of every heart. This day is unlike any other. Ordinary routines exist, but only as fragile illusions. Streets hum with movement, yet each step is heavy, measured. People walk to work, to school, to markets, but every gaze drifts skyward. Children point to streaks of light, their laughter tinged with unease. Elderly couples hold hands, clinging to continuity, to the familiar, to the lives that may vanish within hours. And the first light of morning transforms into a canvas of paradox, beauty shadowed by imminent doom, serenity trembling on the edge of destruction. The news cycles have shifted from speculation to immediacy. Every channel, every feed, every broadcast shows the sky as it is seen. Faint, small, distant, yet moving inexorably closer. Anchors speak softly now, voices heavy with the responsibility of truth. They describe velocities and trajectories in words that sound measured, technical, almost soothing, yet beneath the numbers lies a truth too large for comprehension. The day will end in ways no human can fully anticipate. People respond in ways as varied as they are profound. Some rise early to embrace the day fully, to see one last sunrise untainted by distraction. They walk to parks, to lakes, to hilltops, carrying cameras, notebooks, or simply empty hands, waiting to capture the fleeting miracle of light before the world changes. Some pause in their homes, staring out windows, taking the ordinary, the hum of appliances, the distant barking of dogs, the scent of breakfast as a small rebellion against fear. Yet for others, dawn becomes unbearable. Anxiety coils through the chest, and time stretches thin. Phones are checked obsessively. Social media scrolls endlessly. Messages fly between loved ones, desperate words of connection, instructions, confessions. Apologies long delayed are suddenly sent, and gestures of care calls, emails, texts multiply like frantic prayers, as if communication alone could stave off the inevitable. There are those who gather in groups, in churches, temples, mosques, in town squares and auditoriums. Their voices rise in song and chant, in prayer and meditation. Some do not speak, bowing silently, accepting the limits of human control. Others shout, cry, or laugh in defiance, an assertion of presence in the face of an indifferent universe. Fear and hope intermingle, creating a delicate tension that hums in the air, palpable and electric. Communities for once reveal the full spectrum of humanity. Acts of kindness bloom even amid panic. Neighbors share food and water. Strangers offer shelter. Families reconcile, neighbors embrace. And yet, alongside compassion, there is unrest. Fights break out over resources. Roads clog with vehicles in frantic attempts to escape, even as experts remind the world that flight is futile. Tension coils, then uncoils, in unpredictable waves. Humanity in microcosm mirrors the uncertainty of the sky above. The natural world reacts too. Birds circle anxiously, unaccustomed to the heightened hum of human activity. Rivers and seas reflect a dawn that seems sharper, more vivid, as though the world itself senses the looming presence of the comet. Wind carries whispers of change, clouds gather, dissolve and reform, indifferent to human notions of time and fear. In every crackle of the morning air, there is a subtle reminder, life continues, whether humanity is ready or not. And yet, amid the chaos and the ritual, there is introspection. Individuals confront the fragility of existence. Questions arise. What have we valued? What have we neglected? What have we failed to notice in the quiet rhythms of everyday life? For some, the comet sharpens memory into clarity. Faces of loved ones are recalled in detail. Favorite songs play in the mind. Small joys, the warmth of a morning coffee, the smell of rain on pavement, the brush of a hand across another's skin become profound treasures, irreplaceable, finite. The media documents everything. Cameras capture tears, laughter, embraces, arguments, moments of prayer. Reporters, once observers, now feel the weight of their own humanity pressing into their words. Their accounts are meticulous, intimate, alive. Every broadcast is a bridge between millions of people experiencing the same sky, the same dawn, the same trembling awareness of an ending that will come too soon. And the comet, ever silent, ever patient, moves closer. What was a tiny dot now stretches across the horizon. Scientists calculate, astronomers revise their predictions, and every number carries heavier implications. The world, for all its noise and movement, begins to sense the finality of the approaching moment. There is no hiding, no denial sufficient to shield the psyche. The dawn itself is a messenger, and humanity watches, waits, and wonders. Still, some resist the fear. They gather in music halls, on street corners, on beaches, in living rooms, celebrating life with acts of creativity and joy. Music, laughter, painting and writing become protests against despair. Even the smallest gestures, a smile, a shared meal, a story told, become affirmations that existence has meaning, however brief, even when time itself feels borrowed. As the morning stretches into midday, the paradox of human response is undeniable. Fear drives action, yet love drives connection. Panic compels retreat, yet hope compels engagement. Chaos and order coexist in the streets, in homes, in hearts. And through it all, the comet grows in the sky, a quiet, inexorable arbiter of time and consequence. And so the question arises, carried in every glance upward, in every tremor of anticipation, when the final hours arrive, and humanity confronts the brink of annihilation, what will endure? The fear, the courage, the love, or the silence that follows all else? Chapter 10. Numbers can be comforting, precise, immutable. They can also be terrifying, rigid, absolute. In the shadow of Three-Eye Atlas, numbers become both guide and judge, a language through which humanity attempts to negotiate with fate. Final calculations are underway, the quiet hum of computers, the soft scratch of pencils on paper, and the whispered exchange of data fill laboratories across the globe. Yet even in this world of precision, uncertainty stretches like a dark horizon. How fast is the comet really traveling? How dense is its core? How much of it will survive the atmosphere if it enters? And how much will fragment into countless fiery shards? Every variable matters. A fraction of a percent in velocity could shift the difference between a minor impact and planetary catastrophe. Each calculation carries consequences not just for theory, but for the survival of millions, for the shape of cities, for the rhythm of life itself. Scientists work in fevered collaboration and quiet desperation. Equations are rewritten in real time. Simulation after simulation runs, each revealing new possibilities, some hopeful, most grim. The data streams in from telescopes, satellites, radar arrays, tracking the comet's movement across the sky. Every observation passed into hundreds of iterations to predict the moment of closest approach, the angle of entry, the energy of impact. And yet, calculations alone cannot capture the full truth. They do not account for chaos, for human error, for the unpredictable whims of a spinning planet. A slight shift in the atmosphere, a fluctuation in temperature, even the pull of the moon can alter trajectories in ways invisible to even the most advanced models. The comet moves according to the laws of physics, impartial and indifferent, while humanity struggles to apply its own fragile understanding to a problem that defies comfort. Meanwhile, governments and agencies monitor the projections obsessively. Every calculation informs decisions that cannot be unmade. Missile launches, evacuation plans, resource allocation, public warnings all rely on numbers derived from a mind-bending tangle of equations. And still, debate rages among experts. Some insist that humanity has a small window to intervene, to nudge the comet off course before it reaches the atmosphere. Others insist that any attempt would be futile, that the only rational response is preparation, not confrontation. Each calculation, each prediction, becomes a moral statement as well as a scientific one. The public, watching through screens and social media, begins to grasp the magnitude of what is happening. Charts and graphs, once comforting abstractions, now feel like oracles. Projected impact zones are mapped in vivid color. Probabilities are displayed as percentages that feel like lifetimes. Even those who do not understand the mathematics sense the gravity. The comet is real, the approach is imminent, and the outcomes are cruelly finite. And yet, in the midst of this rigor, a strange rhythm emerges. Scientists speak of chance, probability and error with the same calm that belies the fear beneath. They calculate, they adjust, they model, but in the quiet moments between iterations, they wonder what numbers cannot tell: the human cost, the grief, the courage, the choices of individuals facing the unknown. Final calculations are not just equations, they are predictions of tragedy, and yet they are also predictions of resilience. Consider the paradox. Humanity seeks certainty in a universe that offers none. Every decimal point, every formula, is a beacon of order against a backdrop of chaos. And yet, the closer the comet comes, the more fragile that order feels. Each adjustment to the model can shift hope into despair, or despair into a fleeting sense of possibility. And in this tension, a quiet truth is revealed. The comet does not care about certainty. It cares only that it moves forward, inexorable, inevitable, impartial. The calculations reach their final hours. Every number has been crunched, every scenario weighed, every prediction tested. The energy of impact, the speed, the trajectory, the fragmentation, all are known within the limits of measurement. Yet no calculation can capture the moment itself, the instant when theory meets reality. All the sums in the world cannot soften the blow, cannot predict the reactions of the living, cannot preserve what is precious and fleeting. And still, in laboratories around the world, scientists continue. They revise, they check, they double-check, because even in the face of inevitability, the act of calculation feels like resistance. Numbers are, in this moment, both shield and confession, a human attempt to impose structure on chaos, to create a map for a journey with no hope of safe arrival. As the sun rises higher, casting shadows that will not last, the world waits. Final calculations have been made. The theories are complete. The comet's approach is known as precisely as human minds can know it. And yet the question lingers in every mind, every lab, every heart. What will happen when the numbers collide with reality? Chapter 11. Night descends with deliberate inevitability, folding the world into shadows that seem heavier than usual, as if even darkness itself senses the weight of what is to come. The sun has disappeared beyond the horizon, yet its absence is felt more acutely than its presence, leaving a quiet void in which every heartbeat becomes audible, every sigh, every whisper, every footstep magnified. For tonight, the night before impact, the world is suspended between what is known and what is unimaginable. Across continents, humanity confronts the night differently. In some homes, families gather, holding hands, speaking softly to one another, as though their words could stave off the inevitable. In others, people wander through empty streets, their faces lifted to the sky, searching for reassurance in stars that now seem both familiar and alien, diminished by the knowledge of the approaching comet. The air is thick with unease, a collective breath held in anticipation, balanced delicately on the edge of fear and awe. Some attempt rituals of meaning. In houses of worship, candles flicker in darkened halls. Prayers rise like smoke curling into the unknown. Chants echo through the night, a steady rhythm of voices seeking solace in tradition, in connection, in the idea that faith might alter the trajectory of fate. Others light fires outside, communal gatherings under the indifferent sky, singing, dancing, creating warmth against a universe that feels cold and implacable. For some, the night is a celebration, a final assertion of life in the face of death, a defiance wrapped in laughter, song and touch. And yet, not all confront the night outwardly. Countless millions sit alone in their rooms, hearts pounding, minds spinning with calculations, probabilities and regrets. The news feeds cycle endlessly, reporting every adjustment in the comet's path, every minor data point treated as monumental. Messages flood in and out, goodbyes, confessions, declarations of love, arguments, questions. Some cry silently, others stare blankly at screens, feeling the surreal weight of reality pressing upon them. In every corner of the world, the night becomes a mirror of the mind, reflecting fear, hope, memory, and longing in equal measure. The natural world seems to respond to the impending moment as well. Animals move differently, subtly, unnervingly. Birds circle the skies in restless arcs, while nocturnal creatures stir with urgency. Wind shifts unpredictably, carrying scents and sounds that unsettle. Even the oceans, vast and relentless, seem to sense the approaching disturbance, with waves that rise and fall in rhythms both familiar and strangely tense. There is a subtle sense of anticipation in the air itself, a quiet agreement that the world, in all its forms, has registered the significance of the coming dawn. In cities, a different energy persists. Neon lights flicker over rain-slick streets as people move with purpose, some preparing for evacuation, though nowhere is truly safe. Vehicles fill highways, honking and weaving, a symphony of human anxiety. Emergency services operate at peak capacity, their workers carrying out tasks both mundane and extraordinary under the shadow of impending calamity. Hospitals and shelters brace for the unknown. Every preparation, however meticulous, feels simultaneously essential and hopeless. In the midst of this, human memory sharpens. People recall the minutiae of ordinary days as if they were treasures, the touch of a loved one's hand, the scent of a morning cup of coffee, the laughter of children, the smell of rain on concrete, the quiet rustle of leaves. These memories, small and fleeting, become talismans against the incomprehensible. Humanity reaches instinctively for continuity, for familiarity, for reminders that life, however impermanent, is beautiful, fragile, and irreplaceable. Scientists continue their vigil. But tonight there is no longer urgency in calculations alone. There is reflection. The data is complete, the models finalized, and yet the minds behind them wrestle with questions numbers cannot answer. What will it feel like to witness the impact? What will survive the fire, the shock, the shaking of the planet? Even the most precise equations cannot account for the human experience of seeing the sky itself transformed, or the grief, the courage, the wonder that will accompany those final moments. Their calculations offer clarity, yes, but they also illuminate the unimaginable, a truth that cannot be captured in figures alone. And in homes around the globe, ordinary acts gain extraordinary significance. Families share meals, even as appetite falters. Children are tucked into beds with extra care. Stories are read aloud with voices trembling slightly. Couples hold one another longer, perhaps for the first time realizing the depth of their own vulnerability. Strangers speak with strangers on streets and in shelters, offering comfort, sharing resources, creating connections that defy fear. In these moments, humanity asserts its resilience, its capacity for compassion and presence, even under the looming shadow of annihilation. And yet, fear is never far. It pulses through conversations, through silence, through the night air itself. Anxiety rides the wind like an invisible spectre. Some cannot sleep. Some wander in restless confusion. Some turn to entertainment, distraction, technology, anything to fill the void of unknowing. Others confront the void directly, staring at the sky, imagining the fireball, imagining the consequences, imagining the finality. The night is at once gentle and cruel, soft in its quiet darkness, yet relentless in the awareness it carries. There are moments of paradoxical beauty. The comet, still distant but unmistakably present, casts a pale glow across the landscape. Its light refracts through clouds, painting streaks across the heavens. Stars shimmer with added brilliance, as if the universe itself wishes to mark the occasion. And beneath this celestial display, humanity responds with a mix of humility and defiance, reveling in the fleeting, exquisite experience of being alive, even as the end draws closer than ever before. Across the world, conversations take on urgency and profundity. Last confessions are whispered. Forgiveness is sought and given. Promises are made to lives that may never continue. The small and large dramas of daily life are reduced to essence. Love, fear, hope, memory, presence. It is a night of reckoning not with morality, but with humanity itself, a reflection of what it means to exist when tomorrow is no longer guaranteed. And yet, in the midst of all this, the world continues. Cars hum, clocks tick, hearts beat. The ordinary persists alongside the extraordinary. And perhaps that is the quiet lesson of this night. Even when facing the unimaginable, life itself does not pause. It is observed, it is felt, it is honored, and it continues in small ways, even as the comet draws closer. As midnight passes and the hours slip inexorably toward the final moments, there is a profound stillness in many corners of the globe. People sit quietly with their thoughts. Some meditate, some pray, some simply breathe. Even in fear, there is an acceptance that time, finite and fleeting, must be lived fully. The night before impact is a night of reflection, connection, and presence, where humanity is confronted not only by a celestial threat, but by its own fragile, magnificent existence. And in this stillness, one question hangs above every conscious mind. When the sky itself transforms tomorrow, when Three-Eye Atlas descends in all its terrible beauty, will humanity be ready to witness what it has created, endured, and loved? Chapter 12. The world holds its breath. Hours of anticipation, calculations, reflection, and fear culminate in this singular moment, the instant when humanity first witnesses the comet, not as a distant dot of light, but as a presence in the sky, undeniable, immense, and immediate. The early morning sky is quiet, deceptively calm. Stars fade before the rising sun, clouds drift across the heavens, and yet there is a new light, a glimmer, a shimmer, a movement that does not belong to the familiar celestial patterns. At first, many think it a trick of the mind, a reflection in glass, a shadow playing on the retina. Then the glow intensifies, spreading across the horizon, painting the edges of clouds in colors both familiar and alien. Eyes widen, cameras click, telescopes focus, but none can fully capture the raw, overwhelming sensation of recognition. This is not a star, this is not a plane, this is something entirely other. First contact is not a single moment, but a cascade of realizations. People see it from rooftops, balconies, fields, and highways. A comet, a visitor from the deep reaches of space, moves with majestic inevitability across the firmament. Its coma shimmers with icy brilliance, reflecting sunlight in ways that dazzle and disorient. Its tail stretches across the sky, a luminous plume that flickers like a brushstroke from some unseen painter, trailing fragments of ice, dust, and cosmic history. It is beautiful, it is terrifying, and it is entirely real. The reaction is instantaneous and profound. Some fall to their knees, unable to articulate the complex swirl of emotions, fear, awe, joy, despair, curiosity colliding at once. Others raise their arms toward the sky, as if reaching for understanding, for communion, for some semblance of control. Children gasp and laugh, pointing excitedly, sensing wonder before comprehension. The elderly whisper to themselves, recalling stories of celestial phenomena from a lifetime of learning, yet none prepare them for this magnitude. And all across the globe, humans are connected in an unspoken, shared recognition. The universe has made itself known, and it is moving toward them. In observatories and research centers, scientists hold their breath, scanning feeds and images from ground and orbit alike. All calculations have led to this moment. Trajectory, velocity, composition, impact zones, each data point now intersects with lived reality. For some, relief is found in confirmation. The comet behaves as predicted. For others, dread is intensified by subtle deviations, minor anomalies in motion, brightness or fragmentation. Every observation is weighed, every second stretched into an eternity of analysis and speculation. And yet, the world outside the laboratories experiences something entirely different. There is no buffer of understanding, no comforting equations, no technical jargon to contextualize the magnitude of what unfolds. For them, the comet is a living presence, an agent of fate moving inexorably closer, and every heartbeat is a measure of human fragility in the face of cosmic immensity. It is in these moments that humanity's shared vulnerability becomes undeniable. Rich and poor, powerful and humble, learned and unlettered, all gaze upward, united by the same ineffable truth. The sky has changed, and nothing will be the same again. Strangely, beauty and terror exist side by side. The comet's icy glow, the undulating shimmer of its tail, the faint fragments scattering behind it, all are mesmerizing. Even those most frightened cannot turn away. There is an aesthetic gravity to its movement, a pattern in chaos that draws the human eye and mind, demanding attention. The cosmos has revealed itself in a manner both intimate and alien, showing humanity the raw elegance of forces far beyond comprehension. The first contact is also a lesson in scale. Even as it dominates the sky, the comet reminds humanity of its own minuteness, its impermanence. Cities, oceans, mountains, these are small, temporary structures on a planet that itself is a fragile body moving through a universe of immense energies. The realization humbles and unsettles, yet it also awakens a profound curiosity. What is this visitor? Where did it come from? What does it carry within it? Not merely in ice and rock, but in the story of billions of years of cosmic history. For a brief, surreal moment, humans feel the immensity of time itself, stretched across the expanse of the universe and compressed into the hours before impact. And the comet is not silent. Though space itself is a vacuum, the interaction of its fragments with sunlight, with Earth's thin upper atmosphere, begins to produce a faint luminescence, flickers of color and streaks of heat that hint at the violence to come. Some perceive it as subtle, almost artistic, a gentle foreshadowing. Others see it as a signal, an omen of the chaos it will unleash. Either way, the message is clear, the distant has arrived, the waiting is over. Humanity's reaction is layered, nuanced, and contradictory. Some panic, traffic snarls, markets fluctuate in real time, families rush to gather loved ones. Some revel in awe. Artists draw, musicians play, poets write, and citizens record the moment with reverent delight. Some stare silently, frozen by a mixture of dread and wonder, their minds racing yet unable to act, caught in the paradox of knowing imminence while feeling powerless. As night falls across parts of the globe, the comet continues its descent, now larger in the sky, casting a faint glow that touches landscapes in unnatural light. Even familiar streets, trees and rivers look transformed, as though viewed through the lens of another world. And with this transformation, a new consciousness arises across humanity. The undeniable, inescapable awareness that tomorrow will not be ordinary, that the final hours will arrive in ways both unimaginably grand and terrifyingly intimate. The first contact has occurred, the sky has revealed its truth. The comet moves forward, unrelenting, and the world must now brace for the consequences that calculations, prayers, and preparations can only partially predict. And so the question arises, lingering in the minds of all who have witnessed it, how will humanity endure what comes next, when the visitor from the stars begins its final descent toward a world unprepared, yet impossibly alive? Chapter 13. The hours grow shorter, measured not by clocks but by the trembling rhythm of the planet itself. Every second carries weight. Every breath is a quiet acknowledgement of impending consequence. 3i, Atlas, once a distant glimmer, now dominates the horizon. Its presence reshapes the sky, stretching across the firmament in luminous arcs, catching clouds in silver and gold, refracting sunlight with a brilliance that blinds and mesmerizes simultaneously. The world has become a theater for forces incomprehensibly vast, and every observer, from mountaintop to valley floor, becomes part of the stage. The approach is gradual, yet undeniable. Human perception struggles to grasp the scale and speed. The comet's icy tail flutters like a veil of cosmic light, moving faster than the eye can follow. Telescopes, cameras, satellites, tools meant to bridge the gap between mind and universe, record data in torrents, yet the raw experience transcends measurement. The hum of calculation and observation is constant, but it cannot soothe the quiet terror felt in the marrow, the visceral sense that time itself is folding, compressing toward an inevitable moment of collision. With proximity comes change. Light behaves differently, refracting in strange ways through the Earth's atmosphere. Shadows lengthen and twist unnaturally. Birds, once moving in calm, patterned flocks, now dart unpredictably across the skies. Winds stir in currents unseen, carrying whispers of shifting temperatures, subtle vibrations, the first tremors of what will come. Even water responds, rippling in lakes and seas as if sensing the disturbance, foreshadowing the chaos that may follow. And humanity responds in equal measure, yet in varied ways. Some move with urgency, finalizing preparations, gathering loved ones, distributing supplies, attempting to create order in a moment where control is almost impossible. Others are paralyzed, staring at the horizon with mouths open, hearts pounding, trapped between disbelief and comprehension. Across cities, towns, and rural landscapes, the planet pulses with anticipation, a collective heartbeat that mirrors the advance of three-eyed Atlas across the heavens. The media captures the spectacle with obsessive precision. Satellites stream high-definition images of the comet's surface, revealing cracks, ridges, and fragments that hint at its violent history. Analysts discuss the angles of approach, the speed of rotation, and the probability of fragmentation upon entry. Yet numbers, percentages, and probabilities cannot convey the emotional gravity of witnessing a massive celestial body inch ever closer to the fragile surface of the Earth. Spectators feel their own mortality refracted in the comet's icy brilliance, the shadow of annihilation entwined with awe. In laboratories and observatories, the final calculations are cross-checked again and again. Every minor deviation in trajectory is scrutinized, every fragment tracked, every potential outcome simulated in countless models. Scientists speak in hushed, precise tones, yet beneath the calm lies a tension as taut as a drawn bowstring. What remains unknown, they understand, may still hold the power to change everything. The comet's approach is a cosmic dialogue in which humanity has only a limited voice. Even as technology aids observation, sensory perception heightens. The air smells differently in places where the comet's light touches it first. Night skies glow in pale, unnatural hues. Shadows move oddly across walls and streets. Windows rattle ever so slightly as if resonating to a distant force, a subtle reminder that gravity and mass are no longer abstractions, but active participants in an unfolding event. Some interpret these sensations as warnings, omens, signs. Others recognize them simply as consequences of proximity, yet the effect on the human psyche is universal. And still, life continues. Precariously, children play with quieter laughter, parents hold them closer, neighbors check in on one another, strangers offer small acts of kindness, sharing food, water, reassurance. The approaching comet does not pause for human routines, yet human life responds stubbornly, with resilience. Every moment becomes more precious. Every gesture, every connection, every heartbeat is magnified by the knowledge of what is coming. The world begins to feel smaller. Distances collapse as the comet looms larger in the sky. Countries, oceans, mountains, cities, all seem to shrink beneath the immensity of a cosmic traveler, indifferent and magnificent. The approach is a lesson in humility, in scale, in the fragility of all human constructs. Humanity is reminded in stark clarity that the planet is only a stage, the comet a force of nature beyond morality or comprehension. And yet, within this growing shadow, there is fascination as well as fear. Scientists marvel at the composition of Three-Eye Atlas, the ancient ice, the dust, the traces of elements older than life itself. Observers speculate on what stories the comet carries from the birth of the solar system, from regions of space never touched by sunlight, from places humanity may never reach. In approaching it, Earth's inhabitants are not merely threatened, they are in communion with history, with matter older than their civilization, with the very fabric of cosmic time. And still, the approach accelerates. Every hour, every minute, brings Three-Eye Atlas closer to physical contact. Night becomes shadowed by its presence. Day is refracted in strange, shimmering light. Human eyes strain to perceive its enormity, Human hearts strain to process the certainty of arrival. And yet, within this tension, a paradox emerges. Fear exists alongside wonder, despair alongside fascination, dread alongside beauty. As the planet holds its breath, the horizon shifts, the shadows deepen, the air itself vibrates with anticipation. Humanity confronts the truth of its impermanence, the limits of preparation, and the brilliance of life, however fleeting. And in the silence that precedes impact, the world asks the question that will guide the next moments of existence. When 3i Atlas descends to meet Earth, how will the delicate balance between fear, wonder, and survival manifest in the final minutes before collision? Chapter 14. The Earth begins to whisper. At first it is subtle, a shiver beneath the soles of feet, a tremor in the walls of homes, a barely perceptible vibration in the silent hours of dawn. People pause mid-step, senses alert but unable to locate the cause. Clocks tick with an almost accusatory precision. The world feels alive, unsettled, responding to a presence beyond comprehension, a celestial visitor moving inexorably closer. Then the whispers grow louder. Ground and sky begin to converse in a language humanity has long ignored. Streets quiver under the weight of anticipation. Trees sway as though bowing to the approaching force. Oceans, vast and normally patient, ripple with unease, sending faint but persistent waves to the edges of continents. These tremors are not merely physical. They ripple through perception, through the mind, through the nervous system itself. They are the first tangible signs that 3i Atlas is no longer distant, no longer theoretical, no longer abstract. It exists as presence, as weight, as imminent consequence. In cities, the tremors inspire panic and reflection simultaneously. Subways pause mid-track. Buildings groan under their own mass, amplified by the subtle gravitational shifts caused by the comet's approach. People stumble, then regain balance, hearts racing. Some clutch one another instinctively, seeking reassurance that the Earth will hold, that civilization will persist. Others stand frozen, faces turned toward the horizon, feeling the pulse of a world suddenly reminded of its fragility. Scientists monitor, measure, and model. Seismographs capture the faint undulations of rock and soil. Satellites detect minute shifts in ocean currents and tectonic plates. Air pressure sensors record changes in the atmosphere, responding to the comet's gravitational influence. And yet, even with every tool and equation at their disposal, the tremors retain a sense of mystery, a subtle unpredictability. The Earth is responding in ways that transcend human comprehension, reminding all observers that no calculation, no prediction, no theory can fully contain reality. Across landscapes, these tremors evoke wonder as well as fear. Rivers ripple with irregular patterns, fountains spill unexpectedly, and windows rattle as if whispering the first warnings of a world being unsettled. Birds cry out, animals pause mid-movement, sensing the shift in the balance of their environment. The natural world reacts instinctively, its rhythms disturbed, yet elegantly, harmoniously, by a force both alien and familiar. Humanity watches and listens, taking note of each subtle signal, knowing that these tremors are the heralds of something far greater to come. In private spaces, people feel the tremors in intimate, visceral ways. The mattress beneath a sleeping child quivers. A photograph falls from a wall. The subtle pressure in the air is perceived as unease. Even without understanding the mechanics, humans sense the significance. Conversations hush, thoughts turn inward, prayers and reflections multiply. The tremors act as a bridge between mind and cosmos, a reminder that events unfolding millions of kilometers away are reaching across the void, touching the very core of existence. In scientific facilities, the tremors prompt recalibration and rapid reassessment. Data is cross-checked, models updated. Probability matrices shift as slight variations in the Earth's crust and gravitational interactions reveal previously unaccounted-for complexities. Engineers and physicists speak in precise terms, yet the language of certainty feels fragile. Humanity realizes that the tremors, subtle as they began, may prelude events beyond prediction, ripples of cause and effect spreading faster than observation, altering outcomes, challenging assumptions. The media reports each tremor, each anomaly, with breathless fascination. News cycles accelerate as the world absorbs both information and emotion. Social media fills with images, videos and eyewitness accounts. Buildings swaying, ground quivering, fountains trembling. The virtual space mirrors reality, chaos and calm, fear and fascination, awe and anxiety coexisting in parallel streams of human experience. And while experts caution that the tremors are minor, temporary, natural responses to gravitational forces, the collective imagination interprets them as a prelude, a drumbeat announcing the arrival of 3i Atlas. Psychologically, the tremors have profound effect. People feel destabilized, Even when physically safe, sleep becomes irregular, hearts race without cause, thoughts circle endlessly around questions of survival, meaning, and the fragility of life. The tremors are not merely seismic, they are existential, pressing humanity to confront mortality, to weigh priorities, to seek connection. In this shared vulnerability, some find empathy, some find fear, and others find resolve. Humanity learns in these tremors the true weight of presence, both cosmic and terrestrial. And yet, amid the unease, there is a strange beauty. The ground's subtle movements, the bending of trees, the shift of ocean currents. These are the Earth's own response, a quiet choreography in anticipation of impact. The tremors are a reminder that the planet itself is alive in ways that humans often forget, that the universe is a network of forces interacting continuously, invisibly and inevitably. In this realization, awe blends with terror, producing a sense of clarity even in uncertainty. Life is delicate, yet vibrant. Existence is finite, yet filled with resonance. As the hours tick closer to the moment of potential collision, the tremors grow in subtle intensity. Buildings resonate more audibly. The ground seems less certain beneath feet. Rivers ripple with increasing irregularity. And yet, for all this, humanity continues. Streets remain populated. Work continues in essential centers. Families huddle together. In the face of forces too immense to resist, the act of living itself becomes an assertion, a defiance, a testament to resilience. And so, with the tremors as both herald and reminder, the Earth waits. The atmosphere, the crust, the oceans all respond to the unseen weight of the comet. Humanity listens, measures and feels, caught in the liminal space between anticipation and encounter. Every quiver of the ground, every subtle sway of a tree, every ripple in water becomes a pulse in the shared consciousness of the planet. The tremors are a signal. The moment of confrontation approaches, and there is no turning back. As the planet shivers beneath the pull of cosmic inevitability, one question presses forward, unspoken yet undeniable. When 3i Atlas draws even closer, when the tremors become uncontainable, how will the first real shock be felt? Not as prediction, but as undeniable reality. Chapter 15. Then it begins. A quiet, almost imperceptible shimmer at first, like the horizon itself is breathing fire. The sky, once a familiar canvas of pale blues and dusky greys, transforms into something both alien and luminous. Every eye that rises toward the heavens witnesses it. 3i Atlas, now close enough that its icy surface refracts sunlight with extraordinary brilliance, ignites the atmosphere with a light both dazzling and haunting. The world feels suspended, balanced on the edge between wonder and terror, the ordinary perception of day and night collapsing into a spectacle that defies comprehension. The comet's approach no longer feels distant. Its tail stretches endlessly, a luminous plume that seems to ripple and flicker with life. The particles within it, ice, rock, cosmic dust, catch the sun in fragments, scattering beams of light across the atmosphere. Clouds glow with shifting hues, painting streets, rooftops and oceans in reflections of pale gold, deep violet and molten silver. Every shadow, every surface, transforms under the unearthly illumination, giving familiar landscapes an otherworldly, almost theatrical quality. The planet itself becomes part of the comet's display, a stage for the final act. People stop. Movement ceases. Even in bustling cities, a strange stillness spreads. Eyes lift, faces upturned, hearts pounding in unison across the globe. For a moment, fear is suspended, replaced by awe, as the immensity of the celestial visitor is revealed in raw, unfiltered splendor. Streets are emptying as though some invisible command has passed through humanity. Watch, bear witness, comprehend. And yet comprehension eludes the mind. The scale of the comet, the speed of its descent, the brilliance of its fire across the sky, these are not phenomena easily grasped by thought alone. They are to be felt, to be experienced, to be absorbed into the senses as overwhelming presence. In the countryside, where the night remains relatively dark, the effect is even more profound. Lakes catch the glow, reflecting a moving tapestry of colors and light, doubling the visual spectacle in rippling patterns. Forests are bathed in shifting brilliance, tree trunks and leaves suddenly painted with alien hues. Mountains glow like dormant volcanoes awakened, their surfaces refracting light in ways unseen for millions of years. Even the wind seems altered, carrying scents of ozone and the crisp tang of cold ice sublimating from the comet's surface, hints of energy exchanged between sky and earth. As the sky ignites, the natural world reacts with instinctive precision. Birds fly erratically, silhouetted against the radiant tail, calling warnings to one another in sharp, anxious cries. Nocturnal creatures hesitate in their hunts, ears swiveling toward the distant vibrations. Fish leap in rivers and lakes, responding to subtle shifts in currents and light. Insects gather in unnatural swarms, tracing arcs in the sky as if attempting to comprehend or escape the display above. Humanity, for all its tools, measurements and knowledge, experiences the comet on the same scale, as both observer and participant, in an event beyond prediction, beyond calculation, beyond control. In cities, reflections of the sky dance across glass and metal. Skyscrapers are adorned with temporary, shimmering light shows. Rooftops glow with the comet's radiance, and windows flicker as if responding to the energy in the atmosphere. Vehicles slow, traffic jams form in uncoordinated pauses as drivers stare upward. Phones are lifted instinctively, capturing the moment, though the lens can never convey the magnitude, the intensity, the awe of direct experience. Social media pulses with live images, videos, and urgent commentary, yet all content seems secondary, inadequate to convey what is unfolding in real time. The comet's brilliance is not static. As it descends, fragments shed from its surface, entering the atmosphere with small streaks of light that ignite briefly like falling stars before fading. Each tiny flare is a microcosm of the larger event, a reminder that the interaction between the celestial and the terrestrial is not abstract, it is active, dynamic, and immediate. Some fragments burn harmlessly, others strike the upper atmosphere with audible pops and flashes, sparking awe and fear simultaneously. The sky is no longer a silent expanse but a canvas of movement, color, sound, and consequence, an immersive sensory experience that defies comprehension. The human reaction evolves along with the sky. Initial awe deepens into reflection, memory, and instinct. Families clutch one another, couples pause in embrace, strangers speak softly to strangers, sharing the weight of witnessing. Memories surge, moments from lifetimes compressed into the awareness of this extraordinary event. The comet's brilliance becomes a mirror, reflecting human consciousness back upon itself. Fragile, fleeting, yet capable of enduring wonder, courage, and connection, even in the shadow of potential annihilation. Psychologically, the ignited sky catalyzes a collective reckoning. Thought and emotion intertwine as the visual splendor forces confrontation with mortality. People consider what they have done, what they have loved, and what will endure. The comet's beauty is inseparable from its threat. Each streak of light, each shimmering fragment, carries the weight of possible destruction. This paradox, existential fear wrapped in cosmic elegance, creates a tension that binds humanity together and sets the stage for the final hours. The approaching comet begins to affect the planet itself. Atmospheric currents shift, air pressure changes subtly, sensed by those attuned to the rhythm of weather. Ocean tides fluctuate beyond predicted patterns. Volcanic regions, fault lines, and fault-adjacent areas register small but increasing activity. Even minor earthquakes ripple across regions previously still, reminding all observers that 3I Atlas's presence is more than spectacle. It is physical, gravitational, and unavoidable. The Earth responds as it always does, with patterns and forces that predate humanity, indifferent to plans, predictions, or desires. And yet, for all this, there is a quiet sense of rhythm, of inevitability, of cosmic choreography. The comet's descent, the Earth's response, the human observation, these intersect in a delicate dance. Fear, awe, wonder, and reflection converge in a tapestry of sensation and thought. Humanity recognizes that in this moment it is part of a story larger than itself, part of a drama played across millions of kilometers of space and billions of years of history. The sky ignites, and with it, the final minutes of anticipation approach. Every observer, whether in dense cities or remote wilderness, participates in the unfolding narrative. The comet's brilliance dominates the horizon. The atmosphere glows with fragments and light. The Earth responds with tremors and ripples, and human consciousness pulses in awe and fear alike. It is an event without parallel, a moment both terrifying and magnificent, a prelude to the collision that will redefine existence for all who witness it. And as the sky reaches the apex of its luminescent display, one question trembles across every mind, unspoken yet undeniable. When the beauty of 3I Atlas transforms into impact, when light becomes fire and anticipation becomes force, how will the Earth bear the first touch of its celestial visitor? Chapter 16. The moment arrives with a silence that is almost tangible, a pause stretched across the globe as if the Earth itself inhales before exhaling in an event of monumental consequence. And then it happens. The first contact, the collision of 3I Atlas with the atmosphere, with the fragile crust of our world, unfolds not as an instant, but as a cascade of interwoven phenomena, each layer of reality shifting under the weight of energy and mass. The sky blazes with brilliance beyond comprehension. Fragments of ice and rock trailing from the comet's main body strike the atmosphere at velocities that defy intuition, igniting into streaks of white-hot plasma. The air itself seems to combust, producing a shimmering curtain of heat and light that dances across the stratosphere. The sun, faint and pale against the radiant intrusion, appears diminished, overwhelmed by the brilliance of the cosmic intruder. Shadows collapse and stretch unpredictably. Night and day blur into a spectacle of movement and fire, as if the sky is both warning and wonder, collapsing into the final act of anticipation. On the surface, the first tremors intensify, evolving into shocks that ripple across continents. Buildings sway violently, some surrendering to the invisible forces, while others endure, groaning and cracking under the stress. Roads buckle and highways ripple like molten metal, rivers surge against banks and oceans begin to roll with waves previously unimaginable. The first impact is not a singular strike, but a dialogue between matter and energy, a conversation in which humanity feels the force but can neither fully interpret nor resist it. The auditory experience is paradoxical. The initial contact produces a resonance that is at once subtle and overwhelming. Ground vibrations traverse kilometers in a fraction of a second. Air pressure changes produce a low-frequency hum, felt more than heard, vibrating through bones, interiors, and consciousness alike. In some regions, the impact generates sonic phenomena, booms and cracks that announce energy released with a power beyond human conception. Even as the eye is dazzled, the body reacts, absorbing the presence of the comet through sensation and perception. The first impact creates a new scale of visual spectacle. Fragmentation occurs as portions of 3I Atlas begin to disintegrate under atmospheric friction. Streaks of debris enter at oblique angles, trailing incandescent arcs and brief yet violent flashes of energy. Cities and landscapes are momentarily bathed in light of alien hue, as if the cosmos itself has pressed a finger against the Earth to announce its existence. The tail of the comet, stretching thousands of kilometers, reflects this sudden combustion, creating a mirror of fire and ice across the heavens. Humanity cannot look away, even as fear and awe intertwine with every blink and heartbeat. The physical effects spread swiftly and unevenly. Areas closest to the initial points of contact experience atmospheric shockwaves, gusts of wind that tear at structures and objects alike, carrying debris across vast distances. Rivers rise and fall unpredictably. Seismic shifts occur in fault lines previously dormant, and the resonance of impact transmits through soil and rock, felt even thousands of kilometers from the main event. The Earth reacts as a living entity, its crust and atmosphere both medium and messenger, translating the celestial intrusion into patterns of destruction and movement. Human perception alternates between disbelief and comprehension. Across continents, people witness what they previously thought impossible: fire streaking through skies glowing with iridescence, tremors moving beneath feet, a world illuminated in both beauty and terror. Eyes strain, hearts race, minds struggle to assimilate what is happening. The first impact is not merely a physical event, but an existential one, a sudden confrontation with the scale of the cosmos and the vulnerability of all human constructs. The comet's material begins to interact with the upper atmosphere in ways that generate auroral phenomena on a planetary scale. Charged particles ionize air molecules, producing transient sheets of luminous color that ripple across night and day alike. Lightning dances in patterns influenced by the incoming mass and energy, creating ephemeral veins of light across continents. These phenomena are breathtaking in their beauty, yet they are reminders that the energy being released is not for observation alone. It is the prelude to force that will alter landscapes, climates, and life itself. Psychologically, humanity reacts in synchronized yet fragmented ways. Some are immobilized by awe and terror, unable to move as if glued by recognition of insignificance. Others act instinctively, seeking shelter, aiding family and neighbors, performing gestures of survival and care. Yet across the spectrum, a shared consciousness emerges, the realization that human resilience and ingenuity are being tested against a force that dwarfs all prior experience. Communities, nations, and individuals simultaneously confront fragility and persistence, mortality and connection. Communication networks begin to strain, failing in pockets under the influence of atmospheric disturbances and electromagnetic fluctuations generated by the comet's energetic entry. Satellites experience disruptions, radio signals waver. Even as humanity attempts to observe and record, the cosmos exerts its sovereignty, reminding all that some forces are beyond human containment or comprehension. The first impact becomes a teacher. Some lessons are tactile, visceral, unavoidable. Amid the destruction and spectacle, subtle patterns emerge. Fragments of the comet that survive initial disintegration continue along trajectories influenced by gravitational interplay. The spread of debris becomes a choreography, a cosmic geometry intersecting with terrestrial reality. Even as chaos unfolds, order manifests in trajectories, arcs and light paths that echo the timeless rules governing matter and energy. Humanity witnesses both unpredictability and the enduring presence of universal law. And yet, in all this movement, in all this fire and displacement, there is an awareness of temporality. The first impact is only the beginning. Energy is released, the ground shakes, the skies burn with fire and plasma, yet larger consequences loom. The initial strike opens a portal of understanding. The magnitude of force is such that what has begun cannot be stopped, only endured. Humanity braces, simultaneously stunned and resolute, as the cascade of events continues its inexorable path toward total consequence. The first impact concludes, yet the world is forever altered. Landscapes, atmospheres, consciousness, all bear the fingerprints of what has passed. And as debris continues to fall, as tremors propagate, as the sky remains ignited with light, one question emerges in the minds of all who survived the initial encounter. When the initial touch of 3i Atlas has passed, when the fire and tremors settle into ongoing force, how will the Earth endure the continuing cascade, and what remains of humanity in the hours that follow? Chapter 17. Silence follows. Not the quiet of peace, but a silence heavy with vibration, a lingering hum that moves through the air, the water, the ground, and even the minds of those who remain. The first impact has passed, yet its energy continues to radiate, carrying consequences that unfold across landscapes and consciousness alike. The world, once familiar and predictable, now feels fragile, altered, suspended between what was and what will be. Cities stand partially intact, yet scarred. Glass shatters in impossible patterns, streets buckle, and structures groan under the sudden redistribution of energy. Urban landscapes become labyrinths of rubble and light, where shadows stretch across surfaces warped by heat and force. The air is thick with particulate matter, carrying the scent of ozone, smoke, and sublimated cometary ice. Visibility is reduced. The horizon appears washed in unnatural hues, painted by atmospheric interaction with debris and energy released during the collision. The sky remains a living canvas, streaked with trails of falling fragments, luminous arcs, and the subtle glow of ionized particles suspended in layers of atmosphere. The natural world is no less transformed. Forests are flattened along swaths where shock waves traveled fastest, rivers overflow from shifted beds, carving new channels in soil softened by tremors, mountains bear microfractures, faint at first but destined to widen with further stress. Oceans, restless and vast, surge with tides amplified by displacement and gravitational perturbations, generating waves that crash against coastlines with newfound unpredictability. The ecosystem itself is in flux, reacting not with intent but with physics, forces that ripple through every living thing, reshaping habitats, altering migration patterns, and forcing survival into immediacy. Humans respond in varied instinctive ways. Those who survived the initial strike move cautiously, wary of aftershocks and falling debris, their senses heightened by experience. Communities form spontaneously, guided by intuition and necessity, connecting in acts of care and rescue. Others wander, paralyzed by trauma, caught between fear, awe, and disbelief. Communication remains disrupted in many regions. Satellites and networks strained by the comet's passage limit coordination, forcing reliance on human presence and ingenuity. The aftermath is both physical and psychological, a collision of environment and consciousness that tests endurance at every scale. The Earth itself continues to shift. Small earthquakes ripple across formerly stable regions. Each tremor a reminder that energy does not vanish, only transfers. Volcanic regions show signs of increased activity, as internal pressures react to altered crustal balance. Even the atmosphere remains unsettled, generating unusual wind currents and storm patterns. Lightning arcs dance unpredictably across clouds laden with debris, creating ephemeral streaks that illuminate devastation in fractured, haunting brilliance. Humanity witnesses not merely the consequence of impact, but the Earth responding to a new equilibrium forced upon it by an extraterrestrial visitor. The psychological effects of the aftermath are profound. Trauma mixes with awe, grief blends with relief. Those who survived the first impact confront mortality, not as an abstraction, but as immediate, tangible, and undeniable. Collective memory records the event in fragments. The brilliance of the sky, the tremors of the ground, the roar of displaced oceans. Communities speak in hushed tones, children cling to parents, strangers offer comfort with gestures that transcend language. The first impact becomes a shared experience of vulnerability, a reminder of both fragility and resilience. In remote areas, the aftermath takes on a quieter, haunting quality. Forests burn faintly from friction-generated sparks. Rivers swell and carve new channels in silent solitude. Mountains echo with fissures that whisper in the wind. These subtle, ongoing movements are almost invisible to casual observation, yet they are part of the cascade of change initiated by the comet's touch. The planet is not merely damaged, it is transformed, adapting its rhythms and contours to the energy imposed upon it. Life in all forms must respond, must adjust, or perish. For scientists and observers, the aftermath is data realized. Seismic readings, atmospheric composition, ocean displacement, and energy dispersal are monitored with relentless precision. Each measurement tells a story: where fragments fell, how energy propagated, which regions remain intact, and which are irrevocably altered. Yet even the most precise instruments cannot fully capture the lived experience, the terror and beauty intertwined, nor the scale of transformation already underway. The aftermath defies total comprehension, demanding humility from all who attempt to quantify it. The comet's passage continues to cast effects beyond the immediate impact zone. Small fragments continue to enter the atmosphere, generating localized flares and minor shockwaves, reminders that even as the first strike concludes, the encounter is ongoing. Meteoric dust drifts around the planet, creating subtle changes in light, temperature, and weather patterns. Shadows lengthen in odd directions, horizons shimmer with unnatural tones, and the interplay of sunlight with airborne particles paints landscapes in spectral brushstrokes. The aftermath is as much sensory as structural, altering perception alongside the physical environment. In the midst of destruction, human resilience manifests in ways both small and profound. Shelter is improvised, food and water shared, medical attention administered with improvised means. Communities rally around shared knowledge, drawing upon instincts, traditions, and ingenuity to survive. Humanity, fragile yet tenacious, negotiates existence amid altered landscapes, atmospheric irregularities, and the lingering psychological weight of witnessing a cosmic event firsthand. The aftermath is not merely recovery, it is adaptation, a rehearsal for further challenges still to come. And yet, amid devastation and resilience, there is beauty. The sky remains a canvas of glowing fragments and trailing light. Oceans shimmer with unusual reflection. Forests sway, some broken, some untouched in the wind's rhythm. Even destruction holds poetry in motion, reminding all observers that energy, once released, transforms rather than disappears. The aftermath is a space of reflection, of recalibration, of confrontation with scale, mortality, and the intertwined majesty and terror of the universe. As the first hours after impact unfold, the world holds its breath again. Damage and displacement, shock and awe, fear and reflection, all continue their interplay across landscapes and minds. The aftermath is both ending and beginning, the conclusion of the initial strike, and the prelude to forces yet to manifest. Humanity looks outward and inward, seeking signs of stability, clues to survival, and understanding of what has truly changed. And so, with Earth trembling, skies streaked with debris, and oceans unsettled, the question arises, as the first impact fades into cascading consequences, as tremors, fires, and fragments continue their work, how will the world endure the ongoing descent of 3I Atlas? And what will the next moments reveal about the limits of human endurance? Chapter 18. Night falls. Though it is unlike any night experienced before, darkness stretches across the earth. Yet it is punctuated by glowing fragments suspended in the sky, by lingering fires, and by the iridescent haze of cometary dust drifting through the atmosphere. Shadows move unpredictably, distorted by light refracted from particles too numerous to count, while the landscape breathes with the subtle rhythm of recovery and tremor. Time itself feels suspended, hours stretch and fold, and the usual markers of night and day are erased, replaced by a long unbroken vigil. The long night is both physical and psychological. Survivors navigate landscapes transformed into unfamiliar terrain, guided by instinct, memory, and the faint glow of the disrupted sky. Streets that once teemed with life are now corridors of silence, interrupted only by the occasional echo of collapsing structures or shifting debris. Forests, flattened in places, sway in others, as if unsure of their own endurance. Rivers carve new paths in dark waters, reflecting starlight filtered through comet dust. The world seems smaller, confined by damage, yet infinitely larger in awareness, as every observer senses both the fragility and resilience of their surroundings. Time stretches in the long night, unmeasured and relentless. The mind seeks patterns, comfort and narrative where there is none. Yet the earth offers only ongoing response, Tremors that ripple unpredictably, distant fires that flare and fade, skies that continue to shimmer with fragments of celestial intrusion. Humanity learns, in these hours, that survival is not merely physical, it is a mental endurance, a test of patience and perception, of courage and reflection. Those who move, and those who wait, are equally engaged in understanding what it means to exist in a world forever altered. The long night is punctuated by subtle warnings. Atmospheric pressure fluctuates, heralding distant shockwaves. Volcanic regions hum faintly with pressure shifts. Oceans ripple with waves that crash against unfamiliar shores, carrying both debris and the echoes of impact across vast distances. Even the wind carries subtle signals, brushing over rubble-strewn landscapes, whispering through collapsed structures and lifting fine dust into clouds that glow faintly under residual light. The planet speaks in its own language, a code of motion and sound, and humanity listens, deciphering patterns born not of intention but of consequence. Psychologically, the long night presses against the edges of perception. Anxiety and awe coexist. Fear and wonder intertwine. Survivors recall moments before the impact, before the tremors, before the sky ignited with brilliance. Memories, both vivid and fragmented, intrude into the present, mingling with the sensory reality of destruction. Humans confront mortality directly, not in abstraction but in tangible, pressing form. Every movement, every decision, every breath becomes weighted with the awareness of fragility. Sleep comes fitfully, if at all, as the mind remains alert to tremor, fire, or sound. Even in darkness, vigilance persists. In remote areas, the long night is quieter, but no less profound. Forests that survived partial flattening sway in the wind, whispering with resilience. Rivers, swollen and restless, flow beneath starlit skies, reflecting the glow of remaining comet debris. Wildlife adapts instinctively. Nocturnal animals move cautiously, birds roost in altered positions, and insects adjust to subtle shifts in air and temperature. Nature continues its rhythms, altered but enduring, demonstrating a resilience that mirrors humanity's own. Across cities, human adaptation is immediate and inventive. Shelters are reinforced with debris, fires used to cook and warm, communal spaces formed to share resources and knowledge. Communication is sporadic, yet human ingenuity finds ways to transmit information, even if delayed. Social bonds, strained by fear and uncertainty, strengthen under necessity. Individuals rely on observation and intuition to navigate streets transformed into unfamiliar landscapes, finding stability amid chaos through shared effort. The long night is also a time of reflection. Witnessing the comet, the first impact, and the aftermath has altered perception permanently. Concepts of scale, time, and mortality are reframed. Humanity contemplates not only survival but meaning. Why endure, what endures, and what is truly significant when the familiar order of life is replaced by the vast, indifferent forces of the cosmos. Art, memory, and instinct intertwine, producing a quiet, contemplative awareness that persists alongside anxiety. In technical terms, the planet continues to adjust. Aftershocks propagate along fault lines, rippling across previously stable regions. Minor debris continues to strike the atmosphere, producing streaks of light and localized shocks. The climate is subtly altered, with micro-changes in pressure, temperature, and wind direction reflecting the redistribution of mass and energy. Even as humans seek shelter and stability, the Earth responds in ongoing, unrelenting motion, a constant reminder that the encounter with 3i Atlas is not over, that consequence continues to unfold in real time. Despite the weight of destruction and uncertainty, there is beauty and awe in the long night. Sky, land, and water interact in novel ways, producing patterns of light, shadow, and movement that have never been witnessed before. Survivors note these phenomena, even as they navigate danger. Reflections in water, sparks of residual fire, faint glows of comet fragments against darkened horizons. In these moments, humanity is reminded that existence persists in both fragility and elegance, in terror and wonder, and that perception itself is a bridge between understanding and experience. As the hours of the long night continue, the world braces for further challenges. The first impact has set forces into motion that cannot be reversed. Tremors, atmospheric disturbances, falling debris, and environmental shifts will continue to test both human endurance and planetary resilience. Humanity moves forward, cautiously, reflectively, and instinctively, knowing that survival depends not only on skill and preparation, but on adaptation, observation, and a quiet acceptance of uncertainty. And amid the lingering glow, the trembling ground, and the vast altered skies, one thought emerges, unspoken yet pressing. When the longest hours stretch into the unknown, when darkness, fire, and tremor continue their interplay. How will the planet, and all who inhabit it, endure the final reckoning of Three-Eyed Atlas? Chapter 19. The story of Three-Eyed Atlas does not end with impact, tremor, or fire. It extends beyond the immediate rupture of ground and sky, beyond the shattering of cities, forests, and oceans, into a realm of consequence that touches every facet of life on Earth. The wider implications ripple across time, space, and consciousness, revealing truths about vulnerability, resilience, and the fragile construct of civilization itself. The comet's visitation is both an event and a mirror, reflecting humanity's place in the universe and its capacity to endure the unimaginable. At the planetary scale, the repercussions are profound. Climate patterns are subtly but permanently altered. The redistribution of mass from impact and debris changes local and global pressures, generating shifts in wind, temperature, and precipitation. Ocean currents displaced by shock waves and rising tides carry altered thermal energy across basins, influencing ecosystems far removed from the initial strike. Forests, plains, and wetlands adapt, retreat, or perish, producing a cascade of ecological consequences. Species respond in instinctive ways. Some migrate to new territories, others face extinction. The comet has imposed a new order on Earth, an order both indifferent and transformative, challenging assumptions of permanence that have long guided human understanding of nature. The implications for human society are equally vast. Infrastructure, built over centuries with careful planning and engineering, is tested in a single catastrophic event. Power grids, transportation networks, water supplies, and communication systems fail, not in sequence but simultaneously, exposing vulnerabilities invisible in ordinary life. Communities must reorganize, innovate, and rebuild under conditions of scarcity and uncertainty. Governance, authority, and social cohesion are examined under pressure, revealing both the strength and fragility of societal bonds. Inequality, resource allocation, and preparedness, all previously abstract concepts, become matters of survival, ethics, and moral consequence. The psychological impact reaches across generations. Survivors carry trauma and memory, often etched in vivid detail. The brilliance of the sky ablaze, the tremors beneath their feet, the roar of displaced oceans. Children and adults alike inherit altered perceptions of risk, of scale, and of mortality. Philosophical frameworks shift, religions and ideologies are re-evaluated, and human priorities are reframed. The event becomes a touchstone for future reflection, a reference point for understanding vulnerability, the magnitude of cosmic forces, and the limits of human foresight. On the scientific front, Three-Eyed Atlas provokes unprecedented inquiry. Cosmology, geology, climatology, and physics converge in the analysis of impact dynamics and planetary response. Models are revised, simulations recalibrated, and theories expanded to incorporate the real-world data of a direct comet encounter. Humanity learns not only about the mechanics of celestial collision, but also about resilience. What materials, structures, and strategies can survive forces previously relegated to hypothetical scenarios? Knowledge gained under duress becomes both practical and philosophical, bridging the gap between observation and comprehension of the universe's indifferent magnitude. Culturally, the comet leaves a permanent imprint. Art, literature, music, and storytelling emerge in response, attempting to capture both the terror and beauty witnessed. Memory becomes myth, myth evolves into legend, and legend is taught as history. Societies reconstruct their understanding of their place in the cosmos, reassessing priorities from global cooperation to local stewardship. Communities remember, commemorate, and reinterpret the experience, integrating it into identity, morality, and collective consciousness. Three-Eyed Atlas is no longer simply a celestial visitor. It becomes a narrative lens through which the human condition is examined, tested, and understood. The event also raises profound existential questions. Humanity confronts the limits of control, the illusion of permanence, and the reality of cosmic indifference. The scale of energy, the unpredictability of debris, and the impossibility of complete mitigation reveal that even advanced civilizations remain small and fragile in comparison to the forces of the universe. Civilizations' achievements, technology, and knowledge endure or fail, not because of ingenuity alone, but because of alignment with circumstances that are largely beyond comprehension or prediction. This confrontation with scale forces introspection. What truly matters, what is transient, and what can be safeguarded against the indifferent cosmos. Economically, the consequences are immediate and lasting. Supply chains collapse, trade networks are disrupted, and production falters as infrastructure recovers from shock. Industries reliant on stable conditions, agriculture, energy, transportation, must adapt to altered climates, disrupted resources, and social upheaval. Yet within these challenges lies opportunity. Innovation accelerates, alternative energy sources emerge, and strategies for disaster resilience evolve. Human societies, constrained and pressured, discover new methods to survive and thrive under altered circumstances. The comet acts as both disruptor and catalyst, challenging complacency while demanding adaptation. At the geopolitical level, Three-Eyed Atlas reshapes global relations. Nations cooperate to share resources, knowledge, and emergency response. Yet competition and tension persist over scarcity, territory, and survival strategies. Borders remain, but priorities shift from ideology to existential preservation. Diplomacy, often abstract and procedural in times of stability, becomes a matter of practical negotiation and mutual endurance. Trust and collaboration are tested, revealing both weaknesses and strengths in global frameworks, and prompting re-evaluation of alliances and preparedness for future cosmic threats. Finally, the implications extend into the philosophical and moral realm. Humanity is confronted with the reality that survival is not guaranteed, that the universe is vast, indifferent, and capable of sudden intervention. Ethical questions arise: how to prioritize aid and resources, how to balance short-term survival with long-term recovery, how to cultivate meaning in a world suddenly aware of its fragility. Reflection deepens, and human consciousness expands, recognizing itself as both transient and resilient, vulnerable, yet capable of remarkable adaptation. The comet becomes a teacher, not in words but in action, a harsh yet illuminating force guiding understanding of life, scale, and consequence. The wider implications are thus multi-layered: environmental, social, psychological, scientific, cultural, economic, geopolitical, and philosophical. Each layer interacts with the others, forming a complex web of consequences that ripple outward across time and space. Humanity emerges forever changed, not solely by the destruction endured, but by the insights gained, the resilience discovered, and the recognition of scale. Three-Eyed Atlas leaves behind a world simultaneously smaller in apparent stability and larger in awareness, a planet transformed physically, psychologically, and existentially. And as humanity contemplates these sweeping consequences, as the planet continues to adjust to displaced energy, fractured landscapes, and lingering cosmic dust, one question lingers, heavy and unyielding. When the immediate aftermath has faded into memory, when the tremors and fires have been catalogued, endured, or repaired, what will humanity have learned about survival, insignificance, and the limits of understanding? And how will this knowledge shape the moments before the final reflection? Chapter 20. In the end, the story of Three-Eyed Atlas is not merely one of impact, tremor, or fire. It is a story of scale and perspective, of humanity caught between the vast indifference of the cosmos and the intimate immediacy of survival. The events that unfolded, the approach, the tremors, the brilliance in the sky, the first impact, the aftermath, and the long night, exist not as isolated incidents, but as threads woven into a single, unbroken narrative. Each moment, each consequence, each human reaction contributes to a tapestry of understanding, reflection, and realization. It is in this quiet synthesis, the calm after relentless motion, that the true implications of the encounter emerge. We have seen how fragile human constructs can be when confronted with forces unimaginable in scale. Cities, infrastructure, technology, objects of centuries of ingenuity, are rendered vulnerable in moments. And yet alongside vulnerability, we have witnessed resilience. Communities reorganize, individuals adapt, and the natural world continues to shift and respond, revealing patterns of endurance embedded in life itself. The juxtaposition of fragility and persistence becomes a mirror, reflecting both limitations and potential. Humanity is reminded that survival is not a static achievement, but a dynamic process, a negotiation with forces far beyond ordinary comprehension. Reflection also carries a temporal dimension. Three-Eyed Atlas forces humanity to confront not just the immediate moment, but the arc of history and the possibilities of the future. Every choice, every action in response to impact, resonates forward. Decisions made under duress, the sharing of resources, the preservation of knowledge, the reconstruction of lives, shape not only survival but legacy. Civilizations, already shaped by millennia of adaptation, are tested in ways that redefine values, priorities, and perception. The comet teaches that existence is transient, yet actions endure, sometimes in forms subtle, intangible, and deeply human. At the same time, the encounter reframes our relationship with the cosmos. The universe, vast and indifferent, imposes scale and consequence without intention. Celestial bodies move according to physics, not morality. Energy is released without preference. Yet, in observing, surviving, and reflecting, humanity asserts presence, awareness, and agency. The collision between cosmic forces and conscious life illuminates paradoxes, smallness and significance, vulnerability and resilience, chaos and order. These contradictions, once theoretical, are made visceral, experienced not as abstractions but as lived reality. There is also an enduring moral and philosophical dimension. 3i Atlas compels contemplation of human priorities. What must be preserved when survival is uncertain? What knowledge, culture, memory, and compassion remain indispensable? How do societies balance immediate necessity with long-term consequence? The comet confronts individuals and collectives alike with ethical choices that echo through time, highlighting the interconnectedness of action, consequence, and reflection. Human endurance is measured not only by physical survival, but by the capacity to act wisely, empathetically, and thoughtfully under conditions of profound uncertainty. The environmental implications cannot be overstated. The impact reconfigures ecosystems, shifts climates, and challenges the stability of Earth's systems. These are not simply consequences of destruction, but catalysts for adaptation. Species adjust, migrate, or vanish. Oceans, rivers, and forests respond with new rhythms. Weather patterns rearrange themselves across continents. The planet, like humanity, negotiates existence in a landscape altered by forces beyond ordinary control. The wider perspective reveals a shared experience of adjustment, a demonstration of resilience that spans both human and natural domains. Even in the quiet that follows, there is a resonance of awe. The memory of the comet's brilliance, the tremor of ground and ocean, the long night of uncertainty, remain etched in consciousness. Reflection becomes a tool for understanding, a way to integrate terror, beauty, and insight into coherent awareness. Humanity learns to appreciate scale and impermanence, to recognize both the limits of comprehension and the capacity for endurance. The experience shapes perception, inviting a reconsideration of priorities, values, and the meaning of existence itself. Ultimately, the story of 3i Atlas is one of continuity amid disruption. Life, in all its forms, continues even as landscapes and skies are transformed. Human consciousness persists, adapting to altered realities, absorbing lessons in survival, empathy, and ingenuity. The cosmos remains indifferent, vast, and incomprehensible, yet the interaction between human awareness and cosmic force produces reflection, insight, and growth. The encounter is not merely a test, it is an invitation to perceive, to consider, and to recalibrate. And so, as the tremors subside, as skies gradually return to a semblance of normalcy, and as survivors begin to piece together a new understanding of their world, one realizes that the final lesson of 3i Atlas is not simply survival or destruction. It is the enduring capacity to observe, to reflect, and to comprehend the fragile, intricate dance between humanity and the universe. It is the realization that existence, however impermanent, is rich with consequence, wonder, and potential. And in this reflective quiet, the question lingers, both unsettling and illuminating. If the universe can impose such scale and indifference, if events unfold beyond anticipation and control, how will humanity choose to live, remember, and act in the fragile interval between cosmic inevitability and human possibility? And so, the question remains. If tomorrow carried with it the certainty of destruction, would we collapse in terror or rise into something greater than ourselves? The comet is not merely ice and stone, it is a mirror. It reflects back to us our unity, our divisions, our hopes, and our fears. Perhaps, in truth, 3i Atlas never needed to strike Earth to change us. Perhaps the very possibility forces us to confront what we ignore in ordinary days. The fragility of our lives, the brevity of our time, and the urgency of meaning. The universe has always been both cradle and graveyard, a vast stage where worlds are born and worlds are ended. To imagine its power descending upon us is to feel both terror and awe, both the weight of insignificance and the spark of defiance. We began with a question of impact, but in the end the real impact may not be on the Earth's surface. It may be within the human soul. The final paradox lingers. The question isn't whether we can survive such a blow. It's whether, in the face of annihilation, we finally learn what it means to be alive.